So you have done data familiarization, where you have actually been able to familiarize yourself with the data, identify the different responses that you have had, and try to identify what within those responses, which of them tend to matter more. So you have highlighted them. In the coding process, then you are trying to put labels to them. So labels to the key aspects of the data that you have actually identified have been relevant to you. But this one, your labels are in relation to the research question that you have. But when you go to number three, you start realizing that now you have done a lot of labeling, but what kind of patterns can you see? What kind of coherency can you identify? Or somebody say, well, it's about theme searching. So in theme searching, it's a process of identifying similarity within the data. What data are you trying to identify similarities within them? You have coded the data into labels, so into codes. So what similarities can you find among the codes? It's important to note that theme searching themes are not in team session. Themes are not hidden in data, expecting to be teamed out by the researcher. The researcher rather construct themes from the data. So you look at the themes and look at the data and construct your themes. So you start seeing that okay, there's issues about credit, access to credit, payment of credit, and then and then maybe credit management. What can you say is a part of the theme that is drawing out from all the three things I've seen? Because they are all different, but they are all about themes. What can you say is here? Are you going to say that credit is a critical part of the business? What are you going and who is the one credit? So depending on the content you have, you may have to start seeing whether there are relationship between the codes that you had in the previous step. That's step 2. Now, after you have done that, you are going to also try to merge, split, or discuss central teams all together and begin to draw out entirely new teams from the scratch. What I mean by reviewing teams is that it means that actually you have gone through the work, you have found some themes, but as the data is plenty, you may end up realizing that some of the themes tend to relate to each other. So is there a way of combining them? Others too seem to be very broad. It's rather very holistic in manner. Can I break them into 2 different parts? So these are some of the things that may come up from the data that you may have. Now, when you do that, then you are able to see that where do I need to split a theme that is too broad so that I can be able to have sub teams that can learn to our understanding. Where do I have to merge? Where do I have to split? All these things may come up. Then, but let me just point out that all the steps I'm talking about, it's not that they happen sequentially like that. Some of them you start on step 1 and go to step 4. Because the data, as you get more intimate with the data as a researcher, you can see some of the things easily without even going through coding. Okay. Then the last part is define, and the fifth part is define and refine. This is where the analysis of each team is done to determine how the team fits into an overall story. So in that case, you end up developing definite punchy or informative names. So you are trying to tell a story of maybe factors that influence accounting practices. You are starting finding a number of different teams. So how can you put them together or refine some of them to be able to speak to the issue more intimately? So this will also come up after you have finished done reviewing your themes. You may need to ask yourself that are there some new ones that you may have to define or refine so that can come closer to what you are trying to do. And the last part is about writing up a detailed analysis or interpretation of the theme of the theme. So what you end up realizing is that you have about 4 things that you have developed. But what does the 4 themes say? What is embedded in the 4 things? Then you may use the other data you collected and even categorize earlier to be able to explain the 4 themes that you have been able to come up with. Now, these steps can be confusing, so it's better we look at an example, then we can appreciate it. So the data familiarization process is what we were doing last week, where we did data management. Now you do code. You code out of the data, you may get your first order codes. Then you start looking for searching for themes. Are there some consistencies among the first order codes that you can actually theme them? If you're able to theme them very well, then at the end of the day, you're coming to a point where you can draw out summaries from the better summaries from the first order codes that you have developed. Then you go to the second order themes. So the first themes have been developed. What are the interrelationships that you can be able to draw out? How is it going to be used? Now take us to your second order. The last one has to do with the one that links to your theoretical constructs or your literature itself or your work. Now, so what you did last week is not too far from what we are doing today. So that's why I just wanted to map it for you to try to appreciate it. So you start with your first order course, that will then become your themes, and go to the second order themes, and then whatever you are going to contribute. Now, doing the MPhil of Obed, he did a study in which he was looking into factors that influencing factors of riders and drivers, to use a ride hailing platform. Obed, are you here?
Yes, Prof, I'm here.
Okay. So you can actually take us through what you did for your master so that we can understand. You are the best person since you applied this thing yourself.
Okay, Prof. Thank you very much, Prof. Good morning, everyone. So,
good morning.
like for Boateng indicated.
Gentlemen and ladies, he said good morning. Nobody responded apart from me.
We did.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, the good morning is not for me. It's for
Good
Obed.
morning.
Bro, I understand why they are not responding.
Time for good morning.
I understand that my name has been associated with assignments or other business school. Anytime they mention Obed, Obed is bringing assignments. So.
Okay, so let's continue.
All right. Okay. So, like Prof said, my MPhil research was generally about understanding the motivations and outcomes for riders and drivers to join the gig economy. And the gig economy is basically an economy that is made up of three actors. These actors being the aggregators of the platform. So aggregators meaning that they make the platform available. So an example or the case study that I did was on Uber. So Uber would make the platform available. On Uber, there are drivers who sign on to the platforms to provide services. And so they are known as the service providers. And then there are riders who would also sign up onto the platform to request for transportation services. So it is these three that come together to form a typical gig ecosystem, or what we call the gig economy. And so my study was to look at what is motivating riders and drivers to join this sort of platform. But in this particular example that we are looking at, we are focusing on the influencing factors for riders and drivers to join a ride-hailing platform or a gig platform. But specifically, we are going to use the UTAUT model as a guide, because we have already learned from previous lessons that the theory actually helps us to guide the questions that we ask in our research, and even helps us to do the analysis of our research, in the sense that there are constructs that we are looking at. And so under these constructs, we explore the factors under each of these constructs that would lead to a particular phenomenon occurring. Okay. So in this particular one, the focus is on the social influencing factors. So even though in my study I looked at the performance, effort, social influencing factors, facilitating conditions, and then I added another construct called trust. In this particular example where we are looking at thematic analysis, we are going to explore or do the analysis based on one of the constructs, which is the social influencing factor, which is that construct that Prof is highlighting to us. So in this model, the social influencing factor is saying that, okay, so let me pick the text as we have there. So the case study below is built on an extract of a deductive thematic analysis, where a construct of the unified theory of acceptance and use of technology model is used to direct the coding and team development of social influencing factors that make riders and drivers to adopt a ride-hailing platform. But before we can do this, we need to understand what the construct that we are going to develop our teams on means. And so social influence in the utility model refers to individuals perceive, there's a typo there, perception that others who are important to them think they should use a particular technology. So how do people who are influential or important to these riders and drivers that I interviewed think that they should sign up to their platforms or they should use the platform? This construct will be explored by looking at the perceptions of how peers or other influencing persons or organizations affect users' use of the ride-hailing platform. Oh, please, next slide. So because it is a case study, we need to have a case study title, which is the social influencing factors of riders and drivers to use a ride-hailing platform. And the purpose is the study is to explore the social influencing factors that make riders to join a ride-hailing platform. What's in a summary, what is this case about? So the Uber ride-hailing application, simply known as Uber, is a popular ride-hailing platform that matches riders to drivers. The matchmaking process is facilitated by an end-to-end mobile application technology that links the rider to the drivers. For this case, two sets of respondents are interviewed. First were riders who use the platform to request for driver services, and second were drivers who use the platform to respond to rider service. So like I explained earlier, the platform is there, riders join, drivers join, riders need a ride, they request for the ride on the platform. The platform would do a matchmake between the driver and the rider. And so the driver then picks up the rider, drops them off, and then they make payments for the ride. Okay. Sorry, just a second. I think Paul wants me to project, so let me do that briefly.
I'm here.
Okay, Paul.
I was just correcting a mistake on the slide.
Okay, Prof. So, Prof, okay, so the steps that we looked at earlier, so the 7 steps. In the first step is data familiarization. So how then did I go about familiarizing myself with the data that I collected? Let's not forget that this case says there are 2 actors we are looking at. We are looking at riders, we are looking at drivers. So the first step is to collect the data. Once you have collected the data, and how do you collect the data? You collect the data because it is a qualitative study. You use an interview guide to collect the data. And in using the interview guide, what you then would do is to ask the respondents the questions by recording. So you have to use a recorder or a voice recorder to capture the responses that these respondents are going to give you. But what I did was to use my phone to capture the responses based, and then to receive the responses that they provided me using my phone. And I did that by recording them. But before I did, I had to sort of seek their permission in order to go ahead and do the recording. So once you have gotten the recording, it is the data you are looking for. So you need to familiarize yourself with the data. So this step in the process is where the researcher needs to familiarize themselves with the data that has been collected. This process of familiarization is done through a process of going over the data alongside making notes on any preliminary patterns that are of interest. So you have gotten the audio. You have to listen to the audio in order to familiarize yourself with the data. So as you listen to the audio, you take notes alongside. Let's also not forget that whilst you were also conducting the interview, there were notes that you take alongside conducting the interview. And so you would sort of bring all this together when you are doing the data familiarization. You may have heard that at the point of doing the interviews, the person may have said some things that you took note of. You may realize that whilst you are listening to the audio again in order to familiarize yourself, there may be some key phrases or key terms that may come up. And so you want to note all of those phrases and terms. And then once that is done, you move to the coding stage. And this is the stage of labeling the important features of the data that are relevant to the research question of the phenomenon under study. This is suggesting that you need to bear in mind the research questions that you are using for your study. Because the essence of collecting the data and to analyze it is to find answers to your research questions or to explore whatever you want to study based on the research questions you have. So more specifically, generating codes identifies and labels something of interest in the data. So we want to identify something of interest, and that is why we code the data. Through the coding process, the researcher is able to identify preliminary thematic map, which feeds into the next step of the analysis. So you are done familiarizing yourself with the data. You come and do your coding, which is labeling some important features in the data. And these features, we looked at pattern matching. So there's a particular pattern of words that are coming up, particular pattern of sentences that are coming up that we look out for when we are doing the coding. So step one, this step of the analysis involves getting acquainted with the data that is collected. The data for this study, like it is usually done in all qualitative studies, was collected through recordings. So like I indicated, recording of the responses. The recording was replayed over and over again alongside note taking so that salient points in the recording can be jotted. After listening to the recording repeatedly and jotting down salient points, it was then transcribed into text file using Microsoft Word. In order to strengthen the data familiarization process, the recordings were transcribed in person by the researcher. So one of the ways to get yourself familiarized with the data is to make sure that you are, first of all, we want to do the interviews yourself. So to have the first-hand information on the responses that will come. Once you are done, you transcribe. And in order for you to transcribe, you first have to listen to the recording. So I did the transcription into a Word document. So the responses the questions, I asked this question, these were the responses that came. I asked this question, these were the responses that came. So step two, which is the coding process, and we would recollect from last week that we had various codes. So there's the first order, second order, and then there's the aggregated codes. We are looking at thematic analysis, and so in step two, which is considered the first order codes in the thematic analysis process. So there is a transcription. So the column that we have is one of the transcriptions that I had for the responses. And then there are codes that were developed from the transcription. Let's look back at the construct that we are using for this case. And it is to look at how people who are important to the riders or the drivers think they should use the platforms, or people who are important, people who have an influence in the lives of these riders and drivers think they should use the platform. So in the transcripts, there is a response that says, I happen to work with an organization where whenever you go for an errand without the company car and needed to pick a taxi, there was always an argument with the finance people about the fare that you would come and report so that you can be reimbursed. And so when Uber came, it became the norm that whenever we had to go out on an official assignment without the company vehicle, we needed to use Uber because with Uber, you can come and show proof of the fare. That is what respondent 1 said. So based on this response, what then were the codes that, or the labels that I could come up with based on this transcription? One of them was that I was noticing the influence based on an organization. And so in the code section, I have one of the codes being organization. There was also the identification of something being a norm. So when we look at, so when Uber came, it became the norm. So the code that I came up with was that then it became sort of mandatory for you to use Uber if you were to step out without a company car. Okay. So I came up with a mandatory alternative as the code for that one. And then there is also a code of verifiability. Why am I saying that we can notice a code of verifiability? And it is based on a transcript. When we read further, it says that we needed to use Uber because with Uber, you can come and show proof of the fare. So it means that there is the need to verify that indeed this is the fare that was charged for the ride that you used or for the transportation that you took. If you were to be using a traditional taxi or you were even to be picking a trotro, how is the company going to verify that this is the fare that you took? They don't give receipts, but Uber is able to provide receipts to all these things. And so that is why there is that sort of verifiability in there. Okay. And then in respondent 4, which is the next section in the transcript column, there was also a response from respondent 4 that is saying that I use Uber a lot. Usually at work, when you need to go somewhere but the company driver isn't available, you have to use the app to request for a taxi because with that one, there is a receipt evidence to show how much the fare is. If you don't come with an Uber evidence, you won't get the refund on the fare. Again, this person is pointing us to an organization. So they are saying the organization they work with. Respondent 1 also said the organization they work with, and that is why you have organization as one of the quotes in there. There's also the mandatory alternative. Why are we seeing this? We are seeing this in the section where it says, usually at work, when you need to go somewhere, but the company driver isn't available, you have to use the app to request for a taxi because with that one, there's a receipt evidence to show how much the fare is. If you don't come with an Uber evidence, you won't get refund for your fare. That section is also pointing us to a verification because they want to verify that indeed you have a pricing. The fare for the price is indeed what you are coming to report. You don't just come and say that I took a taxi and it is 20 cedis or it is 30 cedis. What shows that the taxi that what even shows that you even took a taxi? And then the step level could even be that what even shows that the taxi that you even took is 20 cedis or 30 cedis. And so that is where that verification is coming in. We have from respondent 3, it said, the respondent says that I am a private class teacher and parents of the kids that I teach often after I have taught and I'm leaving, give me money to take Uber. Here, we are not seeing any trend of any organizational influence. We are not seeing any trend of any mandatory alternative because it is not a force that the person should use the platform. We are not seeing any trend or any pattern of verifiability because no one is asking the respondents, or the respondents has not given us any response that is saying that there is a need to come and show proof of anything. All the person is saying that somebody makes sponsorship for them to use the platform, and that is how come I came up with a team of sponsors. Is any questions before I move on from here?
Hello, Senior Albert.
Yes, boss, please go ahead.
Okay, so from what you've said so far, if, for instance, you would have covered the developed codes that you've already made, I guess we would have had different code for each and every transcription that you've done. So does it mean that the coding, is it always necessary and mandatory for your question or maybe the research topic to have influence on the coding?
Yeah, so my first response to you is yes, if the theory is what is guiding you. Why am I saying this? You have to read existing literature on the model that you are using. So in reading the existing literature, the social influencing factors, one of the things that comes up is influence from, it could be individual level influence, or it could be a meso level influence. Meso level being organizational level influence, or a micro level influence. So whilst I was reading through, I was trying to see if I could find out any of these things from the transcription, and that is why I came up with the organization. Let's also not forget that this is qualitative research, especially for the analysis stage is subjective, like we have learned in previous sessions. So, but even though it is subjective, whatever quotes that you come up with should not be so far away from what another person may come up with. I remember when we were looking at this in earlier sections, in where I have the mandatory alternative, I think Prof suggested another term, I've forgotten, but it wasn't too far from my suggestion of mandatory alternative. Is it Livingston? Are you with us?
Yes, I'm with you.
So, please, is your question answered?
Yes, please. So does that mean you should do extensive reading in line with?
Yes, you should have done some level of reading regarding the theory that you are applying, because what you do is that you are either supposed to sort of confirm what is already known out there regarding the study that you are doing. If you are applying a model, I mean, some studies may have been used, they have been done around the model. So you look out for all those things. If you don't read out the model, how do you even apply it if you don't read about it? So you need to bear all these things in mind even before you go into apply the model to your study.
Thank you very much.
Desmond.
Okay, during the development of the codes, assuming you miss one of the codes that you are not able to capture, for example, the mandatory alternative, does it have any effect on your results?
It means you may not have fully exhausted your familiarization with the data first, but there's always a step in the 7-step process where you have to revisit the stages and make sure that indeed you have covered all the steps. Would look at that. But I mean, because it is subjective, it is possible that you may have left some things out and not come out with all. And that's why some people may even want to use a software to do that. So I am not ruling out the fact that you may have, it is possible that you have left some things out. But like I said, because of the subjective nature of the analysis, it is possible that you can leave some things out. That is why you always have to, okay, somebody has even mentioned there is a review of the team. So you have to go and review to be sure that you have covered everything. So the process itself makes room for you to revisit the stages to make sure that you have exhausted all the possible teams and codes that you can come up with from your transcription or from the data that you have collected. This one, are you okay?
Yes, please. Thank you.
I think Agatha's hand was up.
Yes. There is something I still don't understand about how the coding is done, but I have heard you talked about a software. Is there a software that you use to come up with the coding? Or what I actually wanted to understand is, per the way you describe it, are you going to look at common things that have appeared severally to come out of it, to produce a code out of it, or how is it actually done? I don't understand it well.
Yes, Agatha. So you are
Wait,
looking at
let me take that one.
Okay.
You are looking at social influencing factors. Now, if you go back to the definition, it says that social influencing factors refer to persons or organizations that can affect your use. So they are going to be social factors. So when you go into your data and you read something like, I happen to work in an organization where whenever you go for an errand without the company car, you need to do so. One, you are realizing that the factor, the entity here, which is influencing the person here is what? Organization, not a person, not an individual, it's an organization. Do you see that? Do you see it?
Yes.
Okay. Now, what is the motive behind that? What influence pressure force is he putting on you? He has established something in terms of influencing somebody. It can be voluntary or involuntary, or it can be out of normation. That means that you belong to something you're supposed to obey because of that. So it's a mandatory alternative, which is coming from a normative perspective. And then why is he saying that? So that you can be used for verifiability. So these three things are what I can see in this respondent's view of the question of what I asked the person. Respondent 4 also comes to me and tells me I use Uber a lot. The company driver isn't available, then I ask for it. If you don't come with the Uber over there, you don't get your refund. So you see another one, verifiability. I see a mandatory authority, I see organization, I put it there. But the last one, it says, I'm a private class teacher. The parents of the kids that I teach often, after I have taught, leave me, I've taught and I'm leaving, give me money to take Uber. So now the person who's telling you to take Uber is somebody who is paying you to do an activity, but it's not an organization, it's an individual who is actually engaged you to do a service, a service person. So somebody may say a client, somebody may say, but what type of client is the person sponsoring that service? So he chose to write sponsor. After course and when words you use, it all depends on you, on what you want to see. Last week we learned about that. So what I'm trying to say is that you can code in two ways, and which we told you that identify things in two ways, and when it goes to last we told that you can do it, and both ways are important that you use. It's not either or. What is the literature telling you, and what is the theory telling you, and then what is the data itself also telling you? Because not everything that your literature will capture or your data, your theory will capture, but it may be relevant for the issue. Oh, but I've answered it well.
Yes, please, Prof. You have. Yes,
okay,
Prof.
now there are two hands up here because I know they are drawing you here. No, Mel. I think I got time of address at home.
Yes, Prof.
Yes, Prof.
So,
yeah, I wanted to find out. You see, before this slide, you were talking about you actually added another construct to the model that you use, which is trust.
yes.
And I
But
can.
we're not dealing with the trust.
We're
not dealing with the trust one. We're not dealing with trust. We're doing only social. Listen, the trust has also another. If you look at his masters, the trust is another question. Has its own set of questions. Do you understand?
Okay, Prof. I'm asking this because yes, I do. But I'm asking this because I wanted to know at which stage did he use that construct, because I can see from this transcript that there are some element of trust in there where the
take your time. When you take every question, you have to know the question that precipitated this particular answer. But because you cannot control users may be answering one question, but they may highlight another one. So it's possible you can see something there. So you are right. Do you understand me?
Okay, Prof. Thank you.
Good. But where are you seeing the trust?
Yes, Prof. Yes, Prof. Thank you.
Where are you seeing the trust? I'm asking you.
Prof, okay, let me come in for him.
Yeah. So,
no,
Prof,
let him answer it.
That
you say you see trust. Let's be on him. Where are you seeing the trust?
Yeah. Yeah, there are some trust issues here. The workers
Where are
that
you
have
seeing
to
that? Where
take
are you seeing the
the
trust? Where?
okay, so for example, so when Uber came, it became a norm that whenever we had to go out on office, for let me read all over. I happen to work with an organization where whenever you go for an errand without the company car and needed to pick a taxi, there was an argument with the finance people about the fare that you would come and report so that you can be reimbursed. So that's that area, always an argument with the finance people. So the finance people don't trust these workers
Okay,
who have to go out without a company's car.
you see how you have just jumped yourself. Do you know the meaning of trust in as you use the word trust? Trust is about trust in the platform to use it.
Yes,
Not
Prof.
trust in the platform to use it, not trust in the fact that they don't trust you in the organization. So you have to always know that you may see a variable, but it's not the way you think the variable is being used. Number two, sometimes when you and Phil talk, guys come up with you are very, very, very energetic about it and very, I see what you are saying is the right thing. Do you know the trust is a multi-dimensional variable? But I don't think he understands it. Multi-dimensional, that trust is not measured as a single word as people see it. Trust consists of 1, benevolence, 2, competence, 3, integrity. The one you are dealing with here is about integrity. That is not part of his work. The issue here is about integrity, benevolence, competence, and then integrity. What you are doing here is integrity. Sometimes you let my teaching. I don't want to go into PhD level work.
Probably you prove that you supervise the work. Thank you, Prof.
Anyway, I'm seeing. I think people. It's good. He's a potential TA in future. He sees things.
Yes, Prof.
So let's take Julius. Please, if your question has been answered, don't come and ask the same question. You are not giving marks for questions. So give the as far as I said, the hands are reduced to 3. Hey. Okay, Julius.
Yes, sir.
I'm jumping you. I'm going to Julius.
The question was actually prompted by your answer when he was talking about the trust. I wanted to ask earlier if after you develop the codes, you need to give operational definitions for them. I was thinking that you will talk about.
No, take your time. Take your time. You ask one question. Let's deal with it. Now, your codes are not supposed to be developed. You don't develop. So I asked a very good. You don't develop per se operational definitions. Your codes are going to build towards an issue. So by the time you finish building your codes, you have actually generated an outcome, which your theoretical construct, it's all leading towards here. When you are explaining it, you end up explaining why you chose it.
Okay.
Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes, bro.
So there's a part of the work we call memoing, but thematic analysis doesn't deal with it. That's why I said next week we have to have another class. There's another thing we call memoing. That's Mouse and Huberman talks about. Memoing is when you have picked up your codes and your teams or whatever you have and start linking them with the literature and start linking them with the literature in 2 ways. Either you're looking for contradictions or you're looking for confirmations.
Confirmations, okay.
So does it confirm something you read in your literature review or you have read before in the theory? Or is it or you're expecting A but you saw C? So why is C occurring? I want to use contradictory, but contradictory is not like opposite. Contradictory is like I was expecting this, but I'm seeing this.
Saw something different.
Good. So why is it not that it's against that guy, that guy's own is wrong? Somebody has published his work. You can't go and say it's wrong. You have to look at the parameters of the work was done in. Even the time they collected data, the timeline has changed. Like, let's just give an example. Ghana last year and Ghana here now. Even last month and now, the dollar has changed again. So if you're talking about something is expensive, last month it was 7.9. This week is 7.5. So there's different variation. So you have to look at timeline too. So when somebody is doing the work and he puts a statement out there, we should always try to look at what are we trying to say, what is the person trying to say in relation to the literature. So I have to teach you memory. Otherwise, you know how to code, but you don't know how to write. How will you turn it into a write-up? That's the question I've asked. That's why I say it's a very good question I've asked.
Yes, bro.
Okay. Can we move on so that we can Hey, there are more hands. Julius, I finished with you. Adai, what's your question?
Hello, Prof. Please, in the definition of the social
Please,
influence.
today the men are talking louder with confidence. So if you come to talk with this short voice, we will not take it to write the question.
Oh, okay. So sorry.
The men are talking louder and with confidence. That's the way the guy came confident at Obed. I said, let me come in.
I was using an earpiece, sir. Okay, sir. So in relation to the social influence of UTAT, you're looking at the meso and then the micro. So we saw that the meso from Obed's listing, the organization was using force. Hence, he developed a code called the mandatory alternative. But when you look at the third respondent, as per the say, I'm a private teacher and my and parents of the kids I teach often after I have taught and I'm leaving me to take Uber. So in that case, there is nothing like force, right? Can we have a team that says that there is sponsorship and it's taking Uber by that particular respondent is voluntary?
Yes, it's voluntary or it can be normative, but technically it depends on you, the author. If you write it, then you have to go and discuss and defend it. And that is a very good question in the sense that you should note that the course you put there, you are going to discuss it. So if you're just putting them as statements and words that you like to just put there, like you went to Morningstar, so you have a very good vocabulary, or you went to Bob Jones, so you understand English more than any other person. By the time you realize, you end up putting a lot of words there that it will not tell a story. That is why we have what we call this part, reviewing the themes. You end up canceling some. Because you realize that the voluntary is not having a pattern to go. Remember, theme is not about just identifying the themes. After that, you have to search to look, identify patterns. Look at the definition we began with. Thematic analysis is what? A pattern form of pattern, identify pattern. Pattern means that a team came and we saw it's a sister team. Do you understand it now? So you can put a voluntary there, but make sure that if you don't find another, it will end up getting dissolved.
Okay, so in the end, it might be
good. That is why it says not everything here that will end up in the final. Because we are just number 2. After that, we are going to go through team section and then refinement, and then define and redefine.
Thank you, sir.
Good. Well, but does that answer the question?
Yes, please, it does.
Okay. So the team section, if you can go over the team section for
Okay. Copy the previous slide.
You have explained it to them. We don't need to go back and
okay. Okay. So regarding the team section, what's led us to have these codes that we call organization? So this step in the process is where coherent and meaningful patterns in the coded data that are relevant to the phenomenon under study, which is the research persons are identified. In simple terms, team searching is a process of identifying similarity within the data. So what things are we identify as being similar within the data that we have?
Okay, so Obed, in that case, we see organization, that's 1. We see mandatory, alternative, and mandatory, that's 2. We see verifiability, that is 3. Are we not seeing them here?
Yes, Paul.
Thank you very much. So that is what he has done right now. So identify similarities. But we didn't see another one. This is just an extract. So we didn't see voluntary or normative alternative or something like that, like the gentleman see, it's being repeated. But let me say something, but I think you can help me if I'm wrong. You see, even if you don't see similarities, but you see that this one is coming from, you see respondent 1, respondent 2, respondent 3, but one of them is coming from maybe the Minister of Trade or Minister of Transport. That one has weight. So even if you don't see similarity, you may want to still keep it there. So the type of respondent matters too. Yes, or maybe all of them were given to you by male, and then one is given by a female. That's not consistent with the male. There's a difference coming here. coming when you look at the source of the code or the theme. So that's why it becomes important. Remember, we call something descriptive quotes. Descriptive quotes is what you look at the person who is the entity who is actually providing the code. So sometimes you have to. That's why, if you remember, we're looking at we're doing the coding last time. I was trying to show you that you can have the one column, the person's the mail, and even this. I showed you mobiles, and no, I showed you videos for learning, video supported learning paper. You remember that when the quote comes, it tells you female. And then to even add maybe an age or something like that to it. If you remember, do you remember that last week? Right.
Yes, Prof, we do.
Age range.
Please, if you don't remember, I can show it again. Those of you don't remember. Everybody remembers. I'm not getting any answer, so I don't even know whether they are here or not. When you get to the exams,
Prof, you remember?
You remember?
I think it was putting in the age so that we can identify where it is coming from. Just putting in the age. Okay, so let's continue.
There were age range. That's where you said that we could group them according to generations.
Good. So that you can maybe tell us that even in that case, and that means that if we're doing the same thing here, Julius, you can let your hand go down. You're doing the same thing here. What would have happened is that you can see that maybe the organization issue is coming from those who are above this age. But then there's another variable that's coming from these other ones, which is coming from this age group. So you may even find out that among a particular age, you find a particular set of themes, and another age, you find another set of themes. That can be very interesting for your quantitative study following up. So the next set of steps is where you start doing the refinement. You have found some similarities. Can you discard some of them? Remember, I told you that if something is not seen, it's not repeated, we discard because we didn't find similarity with it. Or we can split some of them. Some of them seems to be too broad. Can we split them into two teams? Then can we refine some of them, the naming? If you combine, can we give it a different name? Oh, but please, look at the question for me because I don't know. I'm not able to get to understand. Review, does it mean that the code you develop should be based on theory or model you are using? Oh, how many times should I say this? I'm getting to understand that some of you didn't come to class last week. This is the slide we showed you about how to code last week. Oh. This is it. How do we code? Two approaches, not an either or decision, from the framework and from the data. Pre-specify codes from the framework. That's the factors in your framework. And be alert for other codes suggested by data. Then the second one, a first set of codes derived from the data relies on coding scheme after initial analysis. So what you do is that you do the two at the same time. Can you see something in relation to the framework or the literature you have read? Can you also see something that may not be there, but it's also important for you to be able to highlight it? Ebenezer. So I hope you can get it now. I don't know why you all keep asking this question, but it seems like you forgot about this step when we're doing it. So now you have seen it, I brought it back again. So let's go back. So I've answered it. Okay, so now let's go to how Obed did it. Obed, if you can take it.
Okay, so the review process is to again look at the transcription that we had, and that is against the team, because you have gone ahead to develop the teams and the codes. So then go back and look at these teams and codes. That whatever you have presented are indeed what you can see in the transcription. So in the first column, we have our transcripts. In the second column, we have the codes that we developed. And then in the third column, we have the team. What is the team? What is within the team telling us about the codes that we developed about the organization. So we realized that there is something within the team that says work with an organization. And it says whenever we had to go for an official assignment without the company car, we needed to use an Uber. So this is the pattern within the text that is drawing us to the code that says organization. Okay. In the second row for the codes, it says mandatory alternative. And we can see that based on the team we have that says within the transcript that is saying that. So when Uber came, it became a norm. So that means that it then became mandatory for whoever was within the organization to use the platform if you needed to step out. And then there is the third, which is talking about the verifiability. And we saw that within the team that says we needed to use Uber because with Uber, you can come and there is a proof of whatever fare that was charged you, even if indeed you went and took you took the transportation or you picked a taxi. So there is that verification from that end. Of next slide.
Okay, let me add this. When I'm reviewing the teams, like just as Obed said, the objective here is to try to also understand whether there are any teams that can be seen as being combined or it can be split. If it's not, you just leave it like that. Or what more data can it encapsulate more data? If it's encapsulating more data, then you may have to expand it. For example, you may realize that maybe one data is talking about private organization, another one is talking about public organization. So you start realizing that there's private and there's public. So you want to differentiate between the public sector, how do we see it, and the private sector, how do we see it? Is there any major differences in the use of this ride-hailing platform for the public sector and private sector? Then you may do that. Especially if respondent one is a private sector and then respondent two is a public sector, that can then draw you to different types of organizations. You may need to split it. But this is where we don't know whether respondent one is there or the other one too is respondent two is a public sector. So we just kept it as organization and we went ahead. Defining yes. I'm listening to you.
Yes, please, you just explain something about the public and private. Actually, I didn't get it. I don't know whether you can come again.
Okay, so I was trying to say that, look at this part. Respondent 4, respondent 1. So what if respondent 1 works in public sector, respondent 4 works in private sector? Do you understand me? Yes, gentlemen, please. Are you here? Is he here? Class?
Yes.
Mola, I think
yes, bro.
Okay, but those who are listening, do you understand it? Public sector, private sector.
Yes.
So the organization here is coming from a private sector. The organization is coming from a public sector. So if you keep on doing it and you see there are differences, you may have to split them into two different setups. But when you realize that they are all having consistency in what they are saying, there's not much differences in them, then you can keep it as public, you may just keep it as organization. So somebody would have just written at the initial stage, first code, public sector, second one, private sector. Then on the next time when you're doing the refinement, you combine them and call it organization. Do you understand it?
Yes, bro.
Or somebody may write here education institution. Another person may write here telecom institution. When you finish, you combine them and call it organization. Because the first one works in telecom, the other one works in education sector, but they are all organizations. Do you appreciate that?
Yes, bro.
Okay. Okay, let's continue. So in the defining and naming teams, Obed, if you want to do this.
Okay, Prof. So in defining and naming teams, there is an association with other individuals, which could be either family or friends. So what is happening here is that based on the teams or the codes that you have come up with, what are you seeing? What sort of names can you give to them? So now you have gone through your data, you have done your coding and your teams, which is based on the patterns or the teams that you have identified from the data. What sort of names can you give to these teams that have emerged? So one of them that I identified was that I could say, based on my knowledge in the micro and meso level influencing factors, being that it could be family and friends who are influencing the person. So this team is named this way to make reference to how riders and drivers perceive that these others could be family and friends who are important to them, believe that they should use the platform. And this is in reference to people like the sponsors. When we look at other extracts of the data, it points to clients that some of the respondents said they work with. There was a respondent who said he's a musician, but when he is going for his gigs, he has to pick an Uber because he wants to look professional in the eyes of the clients that he's going to work with, or the clients who have contracted him to come and perform the gig. He cannot go in a trotro or a traditional taxi because they may not see him to be professional or to be classy in that manner. And so even the pricing that they will even give him would be sort of less or reduced because they don't see him as like professional because he came in a taxi or a tractor. And then the other one was obviously about the organizational influence, which is at the meso level, because I could identify that there was an organizational influence on why the riders think that they should use the platform. And this team is named this way to make reference to how riders and drivers perceive that organizations who are important to them believe they should use the platform. So these were the two names that I could give to the teams that emerged based on the codes. And if we recollect, we would find that so from this table, we have the organization, we have the team that's led to that. And then, so we have the punchy or identifiable name to give to it as organizational influence. And then there is the sponsorship, which is association with other individuals. So this is at the micro level. And so this could be family or friends. You could consider the parents of the kids who sponsored them as maybe friends of the rider, of the rider, who in this case is the teacher who was teaching their kids. And then the last one that we are seeing is the clientele. And that's the example the response that I cited about the gig, the musician who was using the Uber because he wanted to look professional in the eyes of his client. And this is his association with the clients that he works with. Oh, please, next step.
Okay.
So once you are done with the defining and naming the teams, we then will do a write-up. So at this stage, the researcher presents a detailed analysis and interpretation of each team in writing on the data extracts to tell a coherent, persuasive story about the data and contextualizing it in relation to existing literature. So what you basically will be doing at the writing stage is that what you have identified, is there something in literature that is either confirming or contradicting it? That is basically what you do at this stage. And I think Prof mentioned something about memory, and it's somehow related to this particular step. Or please, next step. Okay, so when we look at our write-up on the last column we have regarding the organizational influence. So for riders, this is us sort of trying to see if there is something that is already in literature that sort of confirms the findings that we have done in this particular study. So it says that for riders, the influence came from organizations with whom they work for. These were identifiable in the sub-teams of organization, making the platform a mandatory alternative means of transportation, verifying payments and subsequently reimbursement of the transport fare payments for official assignments from the platform. The Uber platform offers a much better way to make their staff accountable in terms of cost of transportation, thereby making it a requirement for their staff to use the platform. These findings are similar with Saleh's assertion in the acceptance of technology in a study conducted in Lebanon of internet banking that the average Lebanese is ready to adopt internet banking just in order to meet demands of the group he or she belongs to. So this is sort of relating the findings in this study to an existing one that has already been done. But that one was not done on ride hailing or ride sharing. It was done in the context of internet banking. And it's identified that people were also influenced to use internet banking because of a group that they were associated with. And this group could be considered as an organization. So they belong to a particular group or a particular organization. And that is one of the where they were getting their influence to use internet banking. So that is an extract of how you can construct your write-up for a particular team that you have identified in your research or your findings. I don't know if there's a next step.
No, I think okay. So I was going to move on to another example where we look at what resources, but I think that I should rather go to the Mouse and Huberman one so that we can start it. Because since that one is more interesting for us, then we can come back to this because we can use Mouse and Huberman to look at all these things. So Boku's hand is up. Can you address it, Robert?
Okay, Bob. Joseph, before you come in, I think Ken has a question. It says, what minimum number of teams are acceptable? For example, if the available data is pointing to just one team, will that be good enough? Yes, Ken, yes. You speak from the data. So if the data is not telling you any other thing, you cannot add what the data is not telling you. So if it is one team that you are seeing or from the data, that is what you report on.
Prof, Obed, may I ask a follow-up on that?
Yes.
Okay, does that not suggest that is why you should use maybe a representative sample in a qualitative study? Because maybe if you ask just a few people, then you won't have enough data to draw conclusions from.
Yeah, so you may consider that as one of the low ends of qualitative research. And don't also forget that you are not just going into the qualitative study because you just want to interview anybody. You are interviewing people who have experience with the phenomenon you are studying. So you are expecting that but note that even with qualitative research, there is still a sizable number of people that you have to interview. There are some authors who would say between 10 to 15 respondents. Others would say about 15. Others would say 20. Others would say 25. So
actually, they advise between 15 to 20, 15 to 25 or 30.
Okay, Prof. So like Prof has confirmed that but these people should be people that are related to the phenomenon you want to study. So you would then would sort of believe that whatever responses they are giving you would address your questions. But and that is why there are also research gaps for you to address. So if someone thinks that this guy's number of respondents are not enough, or he is not convinced that whatever responses are coming up, you may want to do a quantitative study from a positivist point of view to sort of identify if we look at it the other way, what would the responses be? But let's note that qualitative is subjective, quantitative is objective. Whatever findings that are coming up from here, the quantitative approach may not sort of bring it up if we are to look at it quantitatively. But someone may also want to pick it up and look at it quantitatively in terms of the statistical significance of the factors that were explored.
Okay, I have put an answer there. But you see, if M fail, you go and do only 10 and bring it because you're doing quantitative, you may fail.
Okay.
But there are different guides, so you have to always know which of them you are, which author you are following, and all of them depends on the type of student. You see, there is a renowned authority who claimed that one participant is enough, depending on what the researcher is researching. Do you understand it? So, what I remember my PhD, my supervisor told me is that I should always aim around 25. And at least getting about 10 of them being core to the issue. And then the rest could be others who can give different perspectives to the issue. Do you understand it, class?
Yes, bro.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Michael Che from Paul. We are saying Paul, please, class. Please pause. You say Michael, we can't hear you. You may want to type.
Prof, please, I'm typing. Prof, please, I'm typing, sorry.
Well, we can hear you now, so you can talk.
Prof, please, I was asking if for mixed method, is 10 participants okay?
Mixed methods. Now you said mixed methods. How can 10 participants be okay?
For the qualitative aspect.
Our advice that please depend on what you are doing. If the phenomenon can give you much more access, you can do more access and get to about the 30. But if it's not giving you access, for example, I'm talking to a company has only 3 employees. So the company owner and the 3 employees I talk to there's 4. But to be able to build and get a risk perspective, the company, as I talk to them, tell me that, okay, we are working with Kwamena, who is one of our clients, and this is a supplier. I start talking to all the people in their network. Remember what I taught you about how to be able to select respondents, those who are close to the issue, direct to the issue, those who are indirect, those who are external to the phenomenon, internal to the phenomenon. So you can use all that particular categorization to build a very good set of respondents and get a comprehensive number that may hit either 15 or above 15. And the reason why we do that is that we are trying to also look whether there will be other type of data that will be obtained or perspective. But after some time, you realize they are not getting anything new. It's the same thing you're getting. You have got to a point of data saturation. But you cannot talk to people who are similar kind all the time and just say that you have just reached data saturation at the 10%. You should have make sure that you have got a diverse group of respondents who are looking at it from different issues. You are doing something about organization. You know, there is an MD, there is a deputy, there is a operations manager, there is a IT manager, there is a sales manager. If you have got access to all of them, why don't you interview? So far as they directly or indirectly linked to the phenomenon of study. Do you understand it? Okay. The guy seems to be in a car or a bus stop. Okay, so let's continue. So Mouse and Huberman's techniques for analysis. Now, Mouse and Huberman's techniques tries to bring a collection of approaches together, which is relevant for doing research. Hey, is it coming to rain at your end?
Yes, Prof.
It's actually been
It's very cloudy.
Now, let me give you.
Prof, it's raining.
Yeah.
Very cloudy.
Prof, it's raining.
Hey, hold on. I didn't say I'm passing the class. I said I'm giving you 1 minute.
Just one question.
I'm giving you 1
So
minute to
probably.
close. Hey, so those of you have to position yourself and
Just
then
one
close your.
question, Prof. asked.
Why is the guy talking? I'm talking again. I said those of you who have to close your windows or something or need to do something, just quickly do it. And then say, okay, class. Are
Yes,
you there?
Prof.
Hello, Prof.
Okay, I'm here.
Yes, Prof.
Okay, so Mouse and Huberman is analytic approaches just brings a cluster of techniques together to be able to carry out qualitative data analysis. Now, in their perspective, data analysis is about examining, categorizing, tabulating, and recombining evidence to address the questions that you had. Then the more you do, the better you get at it. The last time that we met and we were talking about the techniques in coding, I told you that most everyone believes the fact that when you start collecting your data, you are starting analysis. Because you make choices about what to record and not to record. You have to start reducing the data into a transcript. And then you have to start looking at labels that you can apply to data and identify patterns. And then you actually write. Now, the issue is that most of the qualitative data will go through the same process. When they get to number 5, then they start looking for different things. So there's thematic analysis, and most of Huberman's has a lot of other techniques that they use before they move to number 6. So most of the approaches, you will see that the slide I'm using, I'm not yet sharing because I'm not teaching it. So Obed, if you can share it with them, the data analysis, the master Huberman data analysis, and then the thematic analysis. So Master Huberman talks about 4 different steps which are interrelated. They used to talk about 3. Those times we were talking about 3, it was about data reduction, display, and conclusions. But now they say 4 because they wanted to bring in the data collection. So now I've got data collection, data condensation, data display, and data conclusion, the conclusions, which has also 2 steps in it, drawing and verifying the conclusions. So in effect, you have even forgot 5 steps, because this one is 2 in 1. This part is 2 in 1. Okay. Now the first thing is what, like what Joseph told you, data familiarization. After you collected your data, while you are collecting your data, you want to start making notes. And you can make notes at the margins of your questionnaire and try to make key points that you can see and even categorize the data. Sometimes you have to link the data to the different sort out the data with the different contacts. So who said what? The rider said this, the driver said that. The rider said this, the driver said that. Or female rider, driver said this, female driver said this, female rider said this, male rider said that. So you're actually trying to label the data accordingly and try to make notes, like what this was, Obed was telling us about familiarization. You go through the data quite a number of times to be able to make notes out of it. Now, with qualitative research, we should appreciate that different types of data we may come across. There are 4 generic types: the observation, the interviews, the documents and text, and lastly, audiovisual. However, with the other ones, Jean also talks about documentation, and then archival records, interviews, observation. He splits observation into 3. There's direct observation, there is participant observation, direct observation where you are there to observe in person, and then there is why am I teaching and somebody is also putting things in the prof is about, he's talking about meeting us again next week. This will not be good for us because his paper is the first paper. So do you know whether I'm coming to meet you about what is coming in the exams and which will be directly for you or not?
Who's that? Who's that?
Agatha.
Prof, please don't mind him.
Prof, sorry, okay, Prof, sorry.
Sometimes you can make some statements. So.
Prof, please, we are sorry.
Prof, we are sorry. Oh, Prof, Buna.
Prof, we are sorry.
Prof, we are sorry. We are sorry.
Please, we are sorry, Prof. We are sorry.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Prof, Akruga is sorry.
No, don't worry, don't worry. Let me just teach my teaching. Okay, so the next speaker product or service. So what you see here is that he has broken the thing into 3. That observation, you are there yourself to observe. Participant observation, you are there, but you're also participating in the activity. Then the physical product or service, you have taken the thing, you are examining the process about it. So you can do a physical product examination or product or service examination where you can actually say that, okay, so somebody is saying that he sells cars. So what is the process in which he sells the car? So you map out the process in a diagram. Or a physical product, you can go to their website and study their website and learn things from their website. So you can be able to even capture the website image and put labels on it. Okay, this is about this is about that. So with physical products, you are trying to take an artifact from the organization and try to examine that artifact. With service examination, what you're trying to do is that the person is providing a service. So you can map out the different steps in the service and see where there are bottlenecks in terms of what you're trying to study. In case there are problems or you're looking for challenges, you can see where there are challenges or where there are issues concerning that service map that the person may have. Anyway, so you have documentation, that's reports, some of them may be belonging to the organization, some may be private, some of them may be public, some of them may be accessible only by request, or like as you write a letter, then they will give you access to it. Archival records, interviews, the individual interviews exist, and then focus group discussion, we do it in groups. Then you have got direct observation, which I mentioned, non-participant observation, and then physical product and service examination. So in broad sense, these are the 6 sources of data that you can interact with as a qualitative researcher. It doesn't mean that every researcher is supposed to get all the 6 and use. It means that there are possibilities that the research can have you give you all the 6 dimensions of data. In fact, I have not even added the social audiovisual one, because that one is even, that makes it 7. The audiovisual one is also there. Okay, please, there's a hand up. There was a hand up earlier, please.
Prof, I wanted to say that you fitted up, you are speeding. So we've enjoyed you throughout the semester. For what the message that came, we are sorry. Just relax fast and then let's finish the semester on a good note. And we are hoping that we'll meet you next week too, on behalf of my colleagues.
We are teaching now. I'm not breaking. So if you will end up having relevant information out of it. So let's continue, gentlemen. Let's continue. I'm not angry, just that when the lecturer is trying to do the best for you so that you can get good marks, we are not even discussing the format of exams you want, whether you want online or offline, face-to-face. All of these things are important. But it seems you don't want to discuss it. But I understand there is a majority who want to discuss, so we'll discuss.
Hey, Prof, you want to discuss it, or we beg?
Okay. Okay, so let's start from the condensation part. We are talking about data collection. So data collection, data condensation. Condensation used to be called reduction, but people came to tell Master Huberman that when you use the word reduction, it means like you are stripping some of the data away. So don't use that word. So condensation means that it's like you got water, you condense it into a block. None of the water is lost. All the water is still there. I hope you understand me. But condensation a reduction can be evaporation, where the water gets evaporated and it goes there. So, and the reason is that we don't want to lose the data, but want to encapsulate the data in another meaning. Like Obed was telling us, all the things that people said, organization, it captures everything that is being said. So we want to encapsulate the data into a word, into statements, into conclusions that can make sense. So what then you have here is that data reduction and data collection. So condensation, please. The more recent books of Miles and Huberman, 2013 ones are using condensation. The old one, 1994, is using reduction. So if you see that, don't be angry that, oh, Prof didn't talk about condensation, I'm seeing reduction. Okay. So this is all about coding. In fact, that's all this is about coding. The condensation is about coding. So you go to the first, the second, and the third, which we have talked about earlier. So I don't want to go into too much details. We talked about how to code. The fact that if you are coding, you code from the framework and you code from the data, and it's important. And the codes are labeled that you attach to the words, a chunk of words or statements that you have seen. Okay. And we mentioned that there are different types of codes. Depending on who you are reading, you may come across something called descriptive codes, topic codes, and analytical codes. You can also come across inferential code, which is the same thing as analytical code. You can also come across the form of coding, the open coding that generates the first order codes. Then there's axial codes or axial coding that generates axial code. Axial means that I've combined two or more together. And the last one is the selective coding that generates your theoretical constructs. Now, technically, we are trying to do the first order axial and aggregate. But in the first order, we can have descriptive or topic codes. Then in the second order, we can have more of topic codes. And the third order, we have now drawn topic codes into themes or into statements or into words or into sentences that try to explain what we are trying to do. So you may end up having theoretical constructs at the end of the day, but it can explain or capture what you are trying to do. And we are going to look at the examples again here. Okay, so let's go back. First of all, we'll use this example. Let's go back to the previous research we are trying to look at. Now, this guy is trying to do a study in the nature of the PhD program at Laken University. And so he has two questions. What PhD topics do they study? And what type of students are preferred? So after interviewing two people, he got two answers. The first answer was supervisors are usually well-banked experts and very knowledgeable, but often away for global assignments. The second one is I spent more time on Skype for discussion with my supervisor. Now, you can actually just say that, oh, I can see some descriptive codes here describing the supervisor, and I can see a topic code here trying to capture what was being said by student 2. But we need to understand that every code that you develop should be, one, valid. The code should reflect what you are saying. That's why sometimes we have differences in the how people code, because they don't see that, they don't check the validity of their code. Number 2, the code itself should be mutually exclusive. That means it should be distinct with no overlap. So that when you look at that paragraph, the code is working on only that paragraph. It's not trying to cover another paragraph that's not there. Or another respondent's view. Number 3, the code itself is also exhaustive. All the relevant data in there can be captured, or it can be captured in 2 codes or 3 codes, like we saw in the thematic example. So we said that in the first statement, we are seeing 2 codes here: knowledgeable supervisor and global orientation. And the second one, we also saw something else to do with the computer literacy, and then face-to-face interaction. Now, because of that, the ASIA course that we developed was that if you are doing a PhD topic, you should expect grand challenges, like we research on grand challenges. The grand challenges are the challenges that face the world faces, like COVID-19, like poverty. Those are the grand challenges of the world. And then you should think global. So maybe 2 key things are being seen here. Then the attributes, the student should be technoculture and should be individualistic, learn to work on his own. Now, for Master Huberman, they say that when you get to a theoretical one, what kind of conclusion can you derive from what you have seen in the axial codes? So you can either come out with a statement or maybe a set of codes, a set of themes. So here he's saying that question one is what type of PhD topic should you research on? From what I'm seeing here, the answer he goes a technoculture program. The PhD is a technoculture program where students are challenged to address global issues or research on global issues. Number 2, the student that who wants to apply for this PhD program should be individualistic and proactive. Those are things that you see from here. Okay. Now, the next stage, according to Master Huberman, is what we call memory. Memory means that you are going to find the data, the theoretical construct you have created. Can you see how it links with the data that you have, the literature that you have? So is there a sentence, a paragraph, or a few statements that can link with the literature? So you are looking for what we call a point of ideation. A point of ideation means that there's a data fits the theory, or the data links with the previous discussion in the literature, or they contradict. Like when I mean contradict, it gives another view. So we are saying here that a point of ideation means that we have linked the data with the theory, or we have linked the data with the previous discussion. Okay. Oba, can you write it down for me? And that how identify the points of ideation in a particular paragraph. I want you to set a question. That's all. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Now, a memo is theorizing write-up of ideas about codes and their relationship as they strike the analytical coding. So you code, you memo, and you memo into 2 types of memos: confirmatory memoing and contradictory memoing. In confirmatory memoing or contradictory memoing, what are you going to do? First of all, when you are memoing, what does it mean? Memoing means that you are reviewing your analytical codes and aggregate constructs, and you are asking yourself that does it relate to the literature? Can I see some pattern in case 1 or case B? Case 1 and case B, can I see a series of occurrences within one case? Okay. Or can I see in multiple cases, case A and case B, can I see some interesting things? Now, what am I trying to say here? When you are memoing, you have found the codes, but you are asking yourself that, can you see a pattern in the codes? Whether in case 1 it happened and in case 2 it happened, or whether in case A it happened and you can see several instances in case A it happened. Sometimes you can find it in one case, series of occurrences that points to what you are saying, or you can find it in case A and case B, depending on what you are doing, multiple or single. Number 2 is for multiple. Number 3 is for a single case study that you can see patterns in different phases of the case. Now, when you are doing the memo, you're asking yourself which pattern agrees with the existing literature, or which pattern disagrees, or is a different perspective to the existing literature. And then write out the statements, write out sentences to present the arguments. So let's look at the quotes. This is a study about the import of mobile phones on micro traders who are women. Now, one of the things Antiakosia said is that most of my customers are in a working class, meaning they do not have much time to come to the market. Listen carefully. I therefore call or text my customers periodically and ask them if they in need of any tomatoes. Then I deliver them to the offices before they close. Grace mentions that's another case B. Grace mentioned that the supply of maize is controlled by monitoring prices on the market. Prices determine how much goods should be supplied at a point in time. I'm able to send simple text messages to inform customers or on maize prices and delivery times. Customers are able to also monitor the trucks that bring commodities to the market in Accra. This enables customers to plan for contingencies. So let's go to our data. So in coding, case 1, what can we see? In case your question is, what benefits do market traders obtain from using mobiles in micro trading? This is the question. Remember the question. So in case one, we are seeing that scheduling of times to supply tomatoes is one thing we have seen. Number two, we have seen that this is enabled by the use of mobile voice call, calendar, text, and on the mobile phone. Case two, we are seeing that monitoring of delivery times and planning contingencies. This is enabled by the use of text messages on the mobile phone. Now, what am I saying here? Now, I can say here that the scheduling of times to supply mobile tomatoes to customers, and then the use of the phone functionality to do that. But because I'm scheduling the time, the mobile phone itself is now creating a borderless business environment. The phone has now, the business environment is now existing on the phone. It's not bound by a physical location. It means that I can actually be in Kumasi and I'll be doing trading and discussing with my customers who are in maybe another part of Kumasi. So I'm in Kyoto and the person is in Mess or is at the post office area, and I'm talking to the person on the phone. So it's not a borderless business environment. If my stall or my shop is in Kejetia, but still I can talk to somebody in Mess or somebody in Ordinary Kwadaso or Pukuware or Prempre or Centreso or even Tech. What I'm trying to do is that I have now left because of the phone, I've translated the business environment to the person's place. So because of that, I have a borderless business environment. Number two, the same thing is helping me to negotiate and be able to schedule the time I can deliver a product to you. So now I've come to what we call personalized services. So the mobile phone and what I'm using it for is now creating a borderless business environment for me, and it's giving me personalized services to my customers. Case B, monitoring. Monitoring has to do with the fact that you want to control something. So monitoring of delivery times and planning contingencies. So it means that you are now controlling your supply chain. Is that not true? Now, because you're controlling your supply chain, your business environment has also been redefined. So the business place factor, where it used to be at Kejetia, is now defined as a different place. So the place factor, because monitoring means that I can move with the thing. The woman said that when the cars are coming, the trucks are coming, he's able to talk to them. Look at what he said. I'm able to monitor the trucks as they are bringing the commodities. So that means that I'm moving with the car. So the place where they do the business has not changed. It's now becoming more of a mobile business environment. The business is on the wheels. It's coming. So I can be able to monitor. So it has redefined the place of business. The other one first one said it is not giving my business a borderless environment. Now when I combine the two, I'm now getting redefinition of place factor and control of supply chain, thereby creating more personalized services which can contribute to loyalty and retention. This is the definition or the conclusion I can derive. With Master Huberman, your end theoretical concern is more of a conclusion you can say out of it. But your conclusion has to be valid, so you have to test your conclusion. We'll talk about that later. So we have seen that case 1 and case 2, we are able to generate our codes. And what can we say out of the cases? What can we say? This is what we can see. Okay. Now, case 1 gave us borderless business environment. Case 2 gave us control supply chain and the place factor and personalized service in case 1. Now, in terms of confirmatory memory, according to the transaction cost theory, and I'm coming from the theory perspective, which was used for this study, there is something known as asset specificity, in which customers are locked into a particular transaction for a considerable time, and that leads to a deepened relationship. Now, because I'm now giving personalized services, and I've redefined my place of business, I can now move my place of business virtually to the place of the customer. What I have done is that I've now created a personalized service to the customer, which deepens our relationship. And because we are deepening our relationship, a customer who is now ordering the Saturday things you buy, her tomatoes and things, with me to deliver it at his home or his house, we now have a deeper relationship. That means that the customer, at some time, becomes more loyal to me and more I can retain the customer. According to Williamson 1981, when that thing happens, the customer is locked into a particular transaction. This is coming from economics, and for a considerable time. So we call it asset specificity. So I can see a link between the personalized service that leads to retention, loyalty, and my asset specificity. So I can say that this, I can translate it into writing. I'm going to translate it into writing. This is what somebody was asking, and then what do I do after that? Because I am using two cases. Look at what happened. Case A and case B. Case 1 and case 2. In case A and Tiakosia uses the mobile phone functionality, calendar functionality to schedule times to supply the customers who need tomatoes. I've summarized it. Case B, customers are able to monitor delivery times of goods from and plan for contingencies. I'm doing what we call cross-case comparison. I'm comparing case A with case B. Then I said the outcome of this is that when you do all these type of things using mobile phone to manage the business like this, it creates a borderless business environment, or we define the place factor. Where is it? Place factor is here. Borderless business environment is here. Do you see it? This is why coding is important. This is why coding is important. This is why coding is important. I've repeated it 3 times. Sorry. So you are using it, the codes to write your work. Personalized services lead to deepened relationship, which can contribute to customer loyalty and retention. Williamson, the memoing. You see, when you are doing discussion of data, discussion of analysis and discussion, analysis is what happened here. I compared here and here. Discussion is when you link it to the data, link it to the literature. So yes, Williamson refers to this phenomenon of deepened relation as asset specificity, a transaction characteristic which depicts customers not into a transaction for a considerable time. This is what we call memory. And by this, you have done your discussion on the issue. So when you say you are doing discussion in your literature and I open your long essay or thesis, I open it and I don't see link memoing happening and you linking the data with the literature, you are not discussed. I know somebody who failed his MPhil because his whole discussion chapter had only a discussion section, had only one reference on a page. So there were 4 pages, each of them had only 1 reference. And you failed, you said that you are not linking what you are found with the literature. So what do you mean by you have done here? You have done discussion. Discussion is that the literature should be engaged heavily with the work, either in contradiction or in memory. So let's go and continue again. Okay. So scheduling of business, case 1, case 2. Now, what we see here is that this is about contradictory memory. You say, if what we see here is that there's scheduling of times to supply tomatoes to customers, and the use of calendar and voice or mobile. So we see communication and information exchanges happening, and then but they are using the voice calls and calendar. Monitoring of delivery times and planning contingency, communication and supply chain information. So what is being exchanged here is the supply chain information also, and then monitoring with text messages. So you see text messages here, we see phone calls here, we see calendar. So what we can say here is that the question is how do market traders use the mobile phone? They use for communication, information exchange. They use for monitoring of the supply chain and exchanging supply chain information. Now, what technologies are helping us? Voice calls, calendar, and text messages. And we are managing trading information. So that's one conclusion. Now, in contradiction, what do we have contradiction? A study was done by Boateng et al. And Boateng et al. Did a study on farmers and mobile phone and found out that mobile money was used for trading. In my discussion, I'm not seeing any mobile money in it. So mobile money is not evident in this study, although I expected it. Now, it is possible because of the economic volume of trade transaction and the type of trade. These are retailers, and then the other one is a wholesaler. But the type of transactions that's taking place, a type of trade. This one was fishermen and farmers. They were dealing with a high volume of produce. So they were selling in high quantities and they were using mobile money to be able to guide to a mobile bank and mobile money to steer the process. But this one had not. At the time I went to the field, I didn't see it in case A, I didn't see case B. It doesn't mean that cannot happen in the future. But it tells you that mobile money is not evident in this study. Perhaps the economic volume of the trade transaction and the type of trade does not warrant the use of mobile money. So I was expecting mobile money to be used as one of the things for the activities, but I didn't see it. So I would say that I would say that it's a contradictory memo, and I'll say it like this. Traders predominantly use mobile phones to improve existing trading activities. These include communication information exchange with customers and traders through the use of voice calls and text messages. Little can be said about transformational impact. Contrary to the previous research on mobile phones usage by farmers and fishermen, there is no evidence of use of mobile banking services in micro trading activities. This finding perhaps stems from the differences in the economic volume and the type of transaction involved in fishing and farming as compared to micro trading activities of traders interviewed in this research. So the type of traders I interviewed did not lend me to see mobile money. But in Boateng et al.'s paper in 2007, they saw something to do with mobile banking, and I didn't see it in my work. Now, there was something here, little can be said about transformational impact. Now, it's coming from the model. There's incremental impact and transformational. Most of the things you are saying here is incremental. The phone is helping you do what you do already. But transformation is when you have mobile banking, mobile money taking over the business and changing the form of payment, changing the way transactions are done. But you don't see that. So in contradiction, I didn't see it. So I just say that I didn't see it because of the type of trade I was dealing with, the micro traders I was dealing with. So that's an example of contradictory memory. Now the next thing is, yes, please.
I would want to find out. So after you have been able to contradict the statement with an existing research, you would have to go further and then give possible reasons why they are contradicting.
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you too. Are you okay?
Yes, sir, I'm okay. I'm okay. Thank you.
Good. Now, whilst you are doing your work, before you even reach your memory part or when you are doing your writing, as part of your work, you can also do what we call data display, because you have to find ways of condensing the data so they can find interesting patterns in it. Data display is one of the ways of condensing the data. I'm talking about coding was one of the ways. Another way is data display. Data display means that you are using diagrams, you are using tables, you are using charts to summarize the data you have. So you can use the data display as, Kwesi, I've seen your hand, I'm coming. Data display as this one. Now this is financial data, I'm summarizing it in this format. And this is data about the handsets the traders use. I'm also summarizing in the table. If I was doing a write-up on this, it would take me about 500 words to just explain the same thing. I might not be able to explain it well. You cannot do the comparison. Because I have been able to capture it in the data in the tabular form, it's easy for you to do cross tabulation, compare one set of data with another set of data. So tabulation is important. It helps you to compare data between each other. So don't ignore data display. Another thing I can display is to display some of the artifacts I examined. I went to their website, I studied their website to be able to look for information. So I look at their website, I even identify some of the ways they're using the internet to support their business. I saw online catalog, I saw advanced search, I saw articles to support the buying decisions. All of these are showing that I was there engaging with the data. When it comes to service examination, I can also use a logic diagram to be able to map out the service or the activities within the service. So you see this one is an activity diagram showing you how cars are being purchased and brought together. I can also go ahead and even use maps. Now this one is about mobiles in Nigeria, mobile commerce in Nigeria, where you see mobile phones being used by market women, particularly tomato traders. They were even men, they were not women. Some of them were men. So you have got here, the product is at Gaza, it has to move to Wuse. So I'm trying to show you the distance. And there are some other people who come to the market to Wuse from the different smaller markets are here. So they will come from La Centa and come and buy and sell it to La Centa, Ida and then Jere. So, but Gaza is where maybe the products are, they move them to resale market. Then I can also show you a pictorial diagram visualization of what the market activities look like, so they can have understanding of what takes place in the market. From this diagram, can you be able to tell me that you can conclude that the sale of tomatoes is predominantly a male activity, not a female activity, as in Ghana? The latter part of the work is to do your conclusions, drawing conclusions. You can only conclude on what you have seen in the data, and not what you have not seen in the data. To be able to draw a conclusion, you can use 13 tactics. And after you have done the 13 tactics, you use another 13 tactics to be able to confirm them. But it doesn't mean you're using all the 13, but these are the tactics that we use to be able to draw out conclusions from data. So what do I mean by that? Your data is at the ICR level. To generate the core category, which is your conclusion, where you are getting to, you need to be able to use some techniques to be able to see the relationships between what you have seen here to generate this one. That's what we are talking about. So the selective coding is selecting the core category by concentrating on basic social processes evident in the data and raising the level of abstraction. The 13 techniques helps you to raise the level of abstraction to the core category. So that's what we are going to know, the 13 techniques. Again, this is the conclusion that we derived. That's what I'm talking about. The technoculture program where students are challenged to address global issues. Now, some of the conclusions that you may end up seeing in some of the studies is that in my mobiles and micro trading paper, you see the conclusions coming out. Let me just show you, then I'll show you how they was generated. Like some of the conclusions can be in the form of lessons. Like lesson one, the innovative use of mobile phones in micro trading activities is influenced by the pre-knowledge of the trader, which have been developed through the formal education and social networks. Lesson two. Now, all of them are coming out of memoing. I didn't just get up and come in. I just wrote them. If you read the paper, you see that I did memoing and led to this one. So lesson two, the readiness to use the mobile phone in trading is influenced by the readiness of the trader and the trading partners and customers in the trader's value chain. Do you realize that none of the conclusions mentions Ghana? It's focusing on the phenomenon, that's the micro trade. It's not focusing on Ghana because you are not trying to conclude on Ghana. What you are doing is a qualitative research. So you conclude based on the phenomenon, not statistically based on the country. In micro trading activities, the benefits obtained by the trader tends to be partly influenced by the extent of mobile phone usage by the trader and actors, customers and trading partners in the value chain. Now let me show you how I arrive at the memo, at the conclusion. So before I can arrive at the conclusion, I have to be able to do a number of things. I have to do cross-case comparison, and I may have to also add my memory. Okay, this one is going to show you the first one, where he's doing the core conclusion. He's using the cross-case comparison or comparing the two cases to be able to find out a pattern and set out the pattern. So the first statement says that economic empowerment is evident in both cases, cross-case analysis. For example, Grace stated that I'm able to send simple text messages to inform customers on maize prices and delivery times. AA also emphasized that, therefore, I do not need to be at the market every day. Yes, still, I still make my money. In this respect, the findings suggest that women traders have gained some economic empowerment and improved income from cost reduction, decision making, and control in managing uncertainty in the transactions with trading partners and customers. Thus, the transformation impact observed is economic empowerment for the traders. These findings suggestive of the fourth lesson are in micro trading activities. Hold on. In micro trading activities, Since trading is primarily about information, improving information management and through mobile phones directly or indirectly enhances decision making, control, and income generation. Decision making, control, and income generation are all codes coming from the second order by means contribute to economic empowerment of the trader. Economic empowerment of the trader is the last one, the one that you found. To be able to generate it, you are now, to be able to state it, you are now pointing out that the reason that you are pointing out that economic empowerment happens because trading is primarily about information. So when you improve the information management processes through mobile phones, directly or indirectly, it will enhance your decision making, control, and income generation, and thereby lead to economic empowerment. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say.
Yes, please.
Okay. So that's it. By this means, contributes to economic empowerment of the trader. Okay. Oh, sorry. So now let's look at it. To be able to draw the conclusions, if you have multiple case studies, you need to review the course in each case and then compare it in the cross-case analysis. I'll show you that. But if you have a single case study, you can look for the patterns in the particular case. Now, this is what we are having here. The tactics for generating meaning. The tactics for generating meaning means that you are going to actually note the patterns in the data. So when you're actually noting the patterns in the data, I can tell you something. For example, the patterns in the data is what we can see here. We saw knowledgeable advice and some global orientation that led to this one. Computer literacy and the limited face-to-face interaction that led to this one. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. So you can see some thematic patterns in the data. Then seeing possibility. Is there information that can be able to make this thing possible? You can't just say things because you want to say them, but you have to maybe to point out that what you're arguing or what you're trying to say, there is enough information to be able to generate that particular statement or argument. For example, you didn't establish that the person has got literacy, and you then start saying that the person what's the name? The person is doing this thing.
Disables to sensitive text messages.
Text messages, good. Because you didn't do that, you cannot go and say it. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. You cannot go and say it. You cannot go and say it. The next other one is that seeing clashing, what goes with what? What goes with what means that you're actually checking the data. Is there anything that works together? So sometimes it may be like you say you put an argument and you see that this other argument also works like that. And you can see it as I'll come to some case examples later, but I just want to show something here. For example, if you look at here, let us go back a little bit. Good. Can you see here? Control supply chain, place factor of business redefined, borderless business environment. These two are going together. So there's no problem about that. I mean, these two are going together. So the borderless business environment, control place factor redefined. So they can see that they go together. So if you look at it, when I was doing the write-up, can you see here? You say that this communication medium creates a borderless environment or redefines the place factor. This one is going with this one. This one is going with this one. So you can cluster some of the things you have found together. And then personalized service goes with deepened relationships. So you can cluster them together. Sorry, I have to go forward. Am I going forward or going forward? Okay. Good. So let's go backward. Okay. Then you said making metaphors and integration of pieces of data. So making metaphors is all about just the labels. Using labels, a metaphor can be a word that is used to represent something. So you are using labels to represent another thing. So you are then here trying to integrate the data into a particular statement. So you see the same thing being done when we're doing the same thing that we're trying to create our labels at the first order, second order. Okay. Then counting to see what is there. Sometimes you have to try to see that is there a consistency? Can you see a pattern? And can you see whether it's continuous? Can you see that there is a systematic way? There is a an attempt to see that, oh, this is not just happening once. It's happening again, it's happening again, it's happening again. So you end up seeing that you can count and see a number of times, but you're not counting quantitatively. You're trying to see that, oh, it seems that it's occurring a number of times. Now, how do you do that? Let me jump a little bit. So, for example, look at here. I can see that I'm looking at perceived usefulness as a factor coming from a theory. I can see that perceived usefulness is share and exchange information within the market and improve efficiency in dealing with business transactions. I can have case C. So I can actually see a pattern occurring. I can see that there are a number of times that the thing is occurring there. I can see the same thing here again. So within one case, I see it occurring another time. Receive information about supply chain demand for potatoes. Easier coordination of business. So the usefulness is being seen at 4 different times, twice in case A and twice in case B. So now I can say that I have been able to find evidence for perceived usefulness. However, when it comes to perceived ease of use, I saw no complexities in the use of a mobile phone. The ease of use of mobile phone as a video for communication. So I see it in case B and see it here. But here I saw it only once. But I've seen it twice again. So I can see there's a pattern again here. So sometimes you literally have to try to identify the number of times, not in terms of counting the numbers, but can you see an occurrence again? Because sometimes just occurring once may not be enough for you to generate a code or a label out of it. Remember when we're doing the thematic one, we just saw that somebody said voluntary, and the voluntary came once. We didn't see it happening again, so we didn't need to repeat it. So when we go to the refining of our codes, we have to just let it go off. Okay. Then weighing the evidence. Now, weighing the evidence means that you actually have to check whether there's substance to the evidence, and I'll have to show you from the work, so I'll go back and show you from the work later. But there's substance from the substance to support it. So, and you can also weigh evidence based on literature. It's likely to look like you're memoing when you are doing it with the literature. So sometimes somebody will take the evidence and try to break it down and say that looking at this, I can see this, and I can see that and that. Then checking the meaning for outliers. That are there any other possibilities that there could be other factors? Checking using extreme cases. Could there be any other, you saw case A, case B, is there any other scenario that the thing could have happened for somebody else? So following up with surprises, you didn't expect to see something, but you have seen it. Why is it occurring? Looking negative evidence, something that is not expected to be seen, but is negative and you see it. The first one is about the positive one, following it up. The second one is about negative. Why is it there? Then making if-then tests. If this is equal to this, then what would happen? Sometimes statements can come like that. Sometimes you may realize that even the respondent may even say, if I had done this, I would have gotten this. So you may want to check whether there can be any conclusion drawn out of it. Looking for spurious relations, things that do not really hold. Is there a spurious relation? It doesn't really hold. So you want to be able to check whether ruling it out. This one is not. So you may see something happen once. You say, let me check. You go there and say that it doesn't really hold. So let it go. Replicating a finding, that is just easy. Replicating a finding is just like this one. I see here, I see here. And then building a logical chain of evidence. Before you can say this, have you established that a logical chain of evidence to prove that this exists? It's just like this one. The possibility. It links with the possibility. So I go on, I go. I go on and go and see that I see the possibility of this occurring, and then I also check that for possibility to occur, there should be a logical chain of evidence. It means that I should have said these things are there so that this one can be generated. Then making the conceptual theoretical coherence. This is about memory. So all that I have done here, can I link it to literature? Can I link it to the theory? Okay. Then after that, you can then confirm. Confirm means that you check for representativeness. You have been able to generate a finding or a conclusion, but is it only coming from this data? Is there any other thing that can explain it or can give you evidence for it? Number 2, there is also checking for researcher effects. You are checking for researcher effects means that, are you sure it's not because of what you are saying or what you have just identified? Will another researcher identify it? Is there any other person in literature who can confirm what you are saying so that you are not using your own biases? Triangulating data sources. So you are drawing from case A to case B so that you don't end up falling for only one representation and think that it's okay. So this conclusion you will derive, is it coming from only case A? Is there not, even in case A, how many times does it occur for you to be able to say that this statement can be made? So you can also triangulate from different data sources. You can look at the quantitative data, look at qualitative in case you are doing multiple mixed method study. Or you can even look at from different sources. When you look at observation, you went there in person, what do you see? And when you went there, you interviewed the people, what did you see? And when you did focus group discussion, what did you see? So the conclusion you have made, is it coming from only one dimension of the data, only the observation? You have to be careful. Because what you observe on the field, can it be confirmed by what you interview? Or can it be confirmed by what you saw in the documents? Or can it be confirmed by what you saw on social media about the company? So that's where that's where it comes to triangulating the data sources. Weighing the evidence means that the evidence you are provided, what weight is behind it? Who is the one saying it? For example, you have actually put a statement out there and you're drawing a conclusion from the MD. Now, the MD's conclusion from the MD will have more weight than a conclusion from maybe the security person concerning strategic issues. But when you're talking about operational issues, maybe they have been stealing in the company and people have been stealing things in the evening. Maybe the weight should be given to more of what the security man is telling you than what the MD is telling you at that time. Checking again for outliers in case there are any outliers there. Okay, some of them are repeating, using extreme cases, follow up on surprise, looking for the negative evidence you are mentioning, making evidence spurious, ruling out spurious relations, replicating and finding, checking out rival. Okay, these ones are not there. Checking out rival explanations. Sometimes there could be a different perspective to what you are saying or what you have seen, and getting feedback from informants. Okay, that one too can also be from getting back feedback from informants. So what I've seen here happens that people finish their work, they come on a certain conclusion, they go back to the field and talk to the key people they talk to and ask them, what's your view concerning the issue? Now, rival explanation, I've seen some students and some researchers using other researchers to do it, or a student using a supervisor. So he has found out something. He said, I'm seeing this conclusion, but please look at the little data I'm showing to you. Can you also see that conclusion? So that you can be able to be very sure that the explanation you are giving, is there any other perspective that could be seen in the same explanation? Okay, so now let's look at somebody's work and see whether we can see some of the things that we talked about. This is coming from Rakia's work. Rakia did her long essay on M-commerce in Nigerian women traders. So let the literature and your research framework guide you in looking at this. She used a model called the TAM model. That was a perceived usefulness. This is the model. Perceived usefulness, perceived use of use. Influences somebody to use a particular technology. But that influencing, ability to use it very well is influenced by knowledge of the trader and other. These two are not in the model. They are things that come up out of the literature. Okay. So let's then do that. Okay. Perceived benefits include reduced costs in accessing market information and improved efficiency and coordination in the business transaction. Their experiences are also motivated other traders to see that they need to own at least a mobile phone, as the benefits that come with it are evident in their daily transactions. This is particularly evident in case B. Now listen to it. She says something, now he's bringing an explanation. So this one, he has actually provided an evidence that because of the experiences of case A and B, other traders also went to buy a phone. Now we have to weigh that evidence. So he has to give an example. So this is particularly evident in case B. Binta purchased a mobile phone. After Binta purchased a mobile phone, the trading partners, customers, and fellow workers also obtain mobile phones or a means to receive mobile calls to coordinate the trading activities in the business work. In case A, so you are seeing cross case happening, but all of these are giving evidence to the particular argument he has placed here. In case A, Hajia Murio is quite adamant about purchasing for Amena for reasons concerning trust and appropriate users. She also acknowledges the usefulness of mobile phone to access market information. This is actually a rival explanation or an alternative explanation. This is saying that Amena, even though Hajia has not bought phone for Amena, Hajia also believes that the phone is important. So the objective here you are trying to tell you here is that the phone is important for the business. And because the phone is important for the business, people have bought phones for them. But Hajia was going to buy for Amena, but because Amena is not trusted, he didn't buy for her. So we are still concluding that even Hajia and Binta both of them believe that the phone is important. That's what we are trying to establish. But we have also tried to tell you a rival explanation that even when you believe it, sometimes there could be a time that you will not buy a phone for your fellow worker because you don't trust that worker and what you use the phone for. Now listen to again. Findings from other traders interviewed in the study also echo means that it's emphasizing the influence of perceived usefulness. Now, what are we arguing here? We are arguing that when somebody finds something to be useful, the thing can affect another person who is also monitoring the person to see that if there's something useful for Kwamena, then I will also go for it because Kwamena benefited from it. Now, findings from other traders interviewed in the study. So what did we say here? Triangulating from other data sources. So we triangulated, we took Binta and Hajia, then we went to other traders. So we are triangulating from other data sources. Okay. As a result of the advantages that come with the mobile phone, some traders tend to overlook the barriers such as cost of airtime, believing that the potential benefits outweighs these costs. Hence, traders who earn little income, like hawkers, also possess a mobile phone just to receive calls or remain in contact with other traders, retailers, wholesalers, and customers in the value chain. This characteristic of these traders tend to be suggestive of a second proposition. Now, this one, before we began the study, we actually proposed a number of propositions or qualitative. We don't say hypotheses, we say propositions. We propose that perceived usefulness may influence the intention of a trader to adopt m-commerce, and we have found evidence for it in this paragraph. Now, if you go to Rakia's work, we can find more of these type of statements. Okay, we can find more of this type of statements. So let me open Rakia's work, and then I want to try and show other ones too. Okay. Oh, but I hope you are making it available for them.
Yes, Prof. I've shared it with them before.
This is the hotel that they don't believe you have done it.
Okay, bro. I'll reshare it.
Okay, so let me highlight Rakia's work. So let's look at Rakia's work. Oh, sorry, what am I doing? Let's look at Rakia's work and zoom in. Rakia went to University of Manchester, so don't be surprised. Okay. So throughout Rakia's presentation, she used data matching, pattern matching, which is a variation of some of the things you see in Mouse and Huberman. So Rakia in her analysis chapter, let's open her analysis chapter. This is her analysis chapter. Chapter 4, page number 62. So it takes one question. I seek to answer the following question: why do market women adopt more m-commerce or use the mobile? So that she will use the data to present it, and that she will discuss it. Then you see the memoing taking place. However, some of the traders have a phone. Some traders actually have a phone because another trader or competitor does. Hence, owning one might not indicate the ability to also afford. That there tends to be some pressure from competitors in the marketplace to adopt mobile phones. This response to pressure from competitors has been characterized as, do you see memoing taking place, as a subjective norm or on behavior intention in the theory of reason action, or the theory of plan behavior. So you've been using two theories to point out, and both of them use the word subjective norm. So when pressure from competitors is enforcing you to behave a particular way, you can call it subjective norm. Okay. Now, Arjen and Fishburne explain that a person's subjective norm is determined by his or her perception that salient social reference think he or she should not perform a particular behavior. These social references include pressure from competitors and other trading partners in the marketplace. The relevance of subjective norm on intention to adopt mobile phones is evident in these studies that are based on information system perspective. Though the effect of subjective norm on the intention is inconclusive from pure research, is inconclusive. From prior research, there is still significant body of theoretical and empirical evidence regarding the importance of the role of subjective norm on technology use directly and indirectly. Okay. Now you're trying to tell is that he has found this, he just found it in one of the scenarios. So he may not conclude on that, but there's evidence in the literature that says that subjective norm can influence technology use directly and indirectly. So the relative influence of subjective norm on intentions to expected to be stronger for a potential users with no prior experience, since they are more likely to rely on the reaction of others in informing their intentions. Lewis et al. Explains perceived usefulness from social aspects, arguing that the cognitive belief of perceived usefulness is influenced by a subjective norm. Subjective norm may also be helped to shape an ease of use before any direct use. If mobile phone services are believed to be difficult to learn and use, unavoidably it will more or less affect one's intention toward adopting. Therefore, subjective norm may affect behavioral intention to adopt the M-commerce through perceived usefulness and perceived ease of use. The first lesson can be identified in micro trading activities. It is in Ghana, the phenomenon. Mobile phones are adopted by some traders because of the perceived benefits obtained by the traders, or because their competitors are using it. And that is what is concluding from here. So this particular conclusion has been verified by having a theoretical coherence. Theoretical coherence, as I showed you earlier in what we were doing, is one of the ways that you use to be able to establish that this is important, making conceptual theoretical coherence. Okay. Now, if you look at it again, and I want to jump and go to another one. Okay. Another issue that influences the usage is the level of literacy or education. Poor knowledge or understanding of mobile phones lead to cultural superstition that affect the adoption. Some market women who are illiterate or can barely read or write ascribe superstitions to technology behind mobile devices and refuse to adopt it. Others have cultural beliefs about it and are scared away by perceived fears and cases that may follow. This is the reference for it. Hence, the poor knowledge of mobile phones leads to negative attitude towards the adoption or poor understanding of the potential benefits. Such negative attitude can become a subjective one that creates a less intention on others to adopt the mobile phones. But this one is not linked with the data. So I think you're just making a continuous explanation. Okay. I want to see if I can point out another. Let's look at another question. Okay. Good. So this question is about benefits obtained from the mobile phone. So let's look at it. Concerning the trading activities in mobile phones use, the most important utility was in the exchange of information on prices, supply, and demand. For traders in the agricultural produce, goods are both seasonal and perishable. Information about supply and demand is critical for the determination of market prices and traders' bargaining power. Information travels between rural wholesale markets and urban retail markets through colleagues. But this process takes time, while supply and demand situations can change quickly and are highly unpredictable. So it's giving a reference for it. It is risky to hoard information as a trader. As a trader risks great loss through either ending up with little profit margin or being stuck with unsold or rotting produces. Another use is to enhance trading relationship. Boateng et al. Noted that in the traditional M-commerce model, interaction between sellers and buyers are mostly by formal face-to-face meetings. This form of interaction normally takes place only when the buyer visits the seller to buy, or the seller follows up with the buyer to collect a payment of produce previously purchased. Obviously, the level of interactions is quite low, taking place once per week or once in a month. That the relationship between the partners is weak, especially during the off-season. However, in the M-commerce environment, there seems to be a closer relationship between trader and supplier, supplier and trader customer. As interaction is improved, so is transaction doing trade and banking. Then he's come to give the evidence from the data. Binta, as seen in case B, uses M-commerce to manage transaction negotiation between trading partners and the bank. Binta states that, and he states what Binta says. Hence, enhancing trading relationships facilitates other marketing trading activities or pre-post pre and post transactions in the marketplace. Just like Binta in case B, another trader interviewed. See what goes with what. Remember what we said. See what goes with which. See what goes with what. Clustering. This is clustering. Just as Binta and in case B and another trader interviewed in the study. Sorry, just as Binta in case B, another trader interviewed in the study also admitted that mobile phone enhances the relationship between trading partners and customers. So he's also doing what his way, he's actually looking for cross-case comparison. He's also actually looking for other evidence to support the argument he has placed across. Okay, now let's continue. Now this is looking for, this is establishing explanation. And also this one, let me just point out. Okay. Okay, I didn't mention this one. So I think I jumped some of the other ones. I didn't mention this one. So making partitioning variables, subsuming particulars to the general, factoring, noting relationship between the variables, finding intervening variables. This one, sometimes you may find another variable that has to be present for something to occur, and building a logical chain of evidence. Okay, let's see what is in the data here. Okay. Now it's here, it says that where should I start? M-commerce is starting at in terms of interpersonal communication, the degree of individualism is significant. Individualism refers to the degree to which is explaining, to which is going to build a memo, to which people will prefer to act as individuals rather than group members. Nigeria is now linking it. So he's now done memoing just for you to see, and it's going to be a confirmatory memory. Nigeria is one of the countries with no degrees of individualism. Nigerians, as a matter of fact, see the need to be connected to other people. Such connections can be achieved by face-to-face interaction, as it consists of greater intensity of socializing and more verbal communication. Hence, in the context like Nigeria, social relationship becomes critical resources to facilitate the diffusion of the technology, resulting in its integration and consequently gaining social acceptance and adoption. Okay, these usage activity lead to the following benefits summarized in the table below. So she was able to get cost, communication, convenience, and the impact of the benefit, removal of intermediaries. So this is the benefits she obtained, and she based on this discussion. Can you see that we are doing data display here? Can you also see that we are doing cross-case analysis here? Can you also see that we are doing labeling or coding, where we have got the theoretical code, the theoretical construct cost being shown where it links with the data, and then communication and convenience, how it links to the data, and impact of benefit, how it links into the data. It is apparent from the two cases presented that there are some cost savings. Don't put a table there without discussing in the use of the mobile phone, as long as the unnecessary journeys are being replaced with instant explanation. The trade partners are easily communicated without having to embark on long journeys and facing other risks on the way, which is definitely a convenient means of communication while offering improved services to customers. The market women mostly use mobile phones before, during, and after trade to make orders from suppliers, contact customers of availability of any reservation or bookings made, and to contact wholesale suppliers and wholesalers and suppliers about strategies. Concerning impact of the benefit, intermediaries are also replaced, as there is no need for having a middleman who will be responsible for exchanging information between the trade partners. Access to information is direct and efficient, and unnecessary expenses are eliminated. These lead to improved services and reach to new customers. Another illustrative example of this, searching for rival explanations or other perspectives. She always is Mrs. Okafor, a rice retailer who owns 3 stores in the market. She says she has acquired a long list of customers in her phone book after 2 years of using a mobile phone. She states that the mobile phone has given me many new customers. Mrs. Okafor, then she talks about all that Mrs. Okafor will say. But by the time she finished, she says that, okay, therefore, mobile phone reduces the risk of transactions for both traders and customers, in resulting in more transactions and lower costs. On the other hand, as earlier noted, the extent of benefits obtained, especially cost benefit, is mediated, searching for intervening variables by the accessibility of mobile phones by actors by both actors in the mobile phone call or actors in information exchange done on the mobile phone. This is evident. Now this is an argument that you are saying that the accessibility of the phone mediates the benefits that you gain from the phone if you have the phone. So you said that what if you don't have access to if you have got less accessibility to the phone, or your actors, the people you work with, the trading partners don't have less accessibility to the phone, you may not get many benefits out of it. That's what he's trying to say. Now, this is evident in case A. Transportation costs could be cut down if Amena and other trading partners in the rural areas have access to a mobile phone. This points out 3 issues. First, now he's going to break down the 3 issues because he's now breaking it down to, let me just show you, partitioning the variables. So he had something that he has done. And you see making contrast and comparison, you see what he was done. But now he's going to partition the variable. All it is about generating meaning. So it's establishing meaning for you. After that, you can draw out the conclusion and then use the conclusion, then he verifies the conclusion. Okay. First, there are issues of trust. Aminous issues as the issue of trust. Second, physical access to issues due to the rollout of technology, telecom services. Fixed lines and mobile network coverage in rural areas tend to be very poor. Amena has to always travel to the nearest village with a telephone center to communicate with Haja. Third, there is mobile network coverage affordability. Even where there's mobile network coverage affordability, even though where there's mobile phone coverage, network coverage, affordability of the mobile phones, so people in the rural areas is just another issue. Okay. As seen in the Grameen projects, this is somebody's thesis assessment. That's why you see some mistakes a little bit in it. As seen in the Grameen projects in Bangladesh, is comparing with literature. It is likely for a number of people in rural area to use one village phone operator or telephone operator, a reference given. Hence, hindrances to economic access of mobile phones contribute to less accessibility and affect the potential benefit that could be obtained. So you stand 3 explanations trying to break down what you really, how benefits are obtained or how benefits can be constrained. These issues affect access to mobile phone and thereby influence adoption and usage of mobile phones in business. It supposes that traders who are able to integrate or use the mobile phones in all trading activities are likely to realize more benefits. It's notable in case A and case B, again, doing cross case analysis. So when he finishes all of this, you can see that this discussion is suggestive of the evidence of our first proposition. The extent of integration of mobile phone and trading matters would influence the benefits obtained and impact realized. Then number 3, in terms of this one is confirmation of a proposition. This one is a lesson. You didn't anticipate this, but you have found it. So look at the differences. You really anticipate, you have found. This is what you anticipated. And you have been able to get confirmation for it. But this is what you didn't know, but it has come out of your work. In micro trading activities, the extent of benefits tends to be partly influenced by the extent of mobile access and usage by traders and their trading partners in the value chain. Okay, so what have we done here? We have tried our best here to try to establish the relevance of having generating conclusions in our work and then having meanings. Now let's continue here. So in effect, when you do all of these things as part of your data collection, you're supposed to establish a number of reliability checks and validity checks, 3 reliability, validity checks and 1 reliability check. Now starting from reliability means that you are checking that the operations for the study, if repeated, you gain the same answer. That's reliability. That's why I want to explain now. The operations of the study. So to be able to make sure that that can happen, then you have to have a case study protocol. I explained the case study protocol is that document that you develop to show the questions you are going to ask in the case study, your questionnaire, your objectives of your case, your potential target people you are going to interview, the potential data sources you are going to draw from, whether documentary, web, online, social media, all those things. You tell us all the sources. And then you are also going to let us know the potential outline of your report when you finish. Then when you are in the field, you develop a case study database, you confirm who and who did you interview? Why did you interview that person? You write all of them down. That's what we call the case study database. So when you finish all these 2, they become the schema that somebody can use to be able to do a future study, thereby enhancing the reliability of your work. The other one is about external validity. That means that to what extent can you generalize the findings that you have gained from your work? Now, if it's a single study, your generalization is what we call theoretical generalization. You rather compare what you have found with the theory. So you look for theoretical coherence. If it's a multiple case study, you like to compare the 2 cases or 3 cases together to see whether it's a pattern of occurrence before you compare with the data. That is why you saw that you were saying in case A as in case B, in case A as in case B, as from coming from another retailer. This is what they said. What are we trying? What are we trying to say? That we are trying to establish replication of a finding. Is that replication of a finding? Okay. Then internal validity has to do with the fact that what you set out to measure, you have actually measured the right thing. Sorry, that's contrary validity. What you set out to measure operational, you have actually measured the right thing. So what do you do that? You have to also use multiple sources of data, of evidence, establish a chain of evidence, make sure that the information that is needed to be able to come out with a conclusion, all of them exist. And then also write your report and review it so that people can, you yourself, you can be able to know that what is captured in your case study report seems to be valid. So construct validity has to do with identifying the right operational or correct operational measures for the concept. Most of the concepts you are using, especially the ones from the theory, somebody has done a thesis or a long essay or even a research paper on it before online. So you have to look at how others measured perceived usefulness. How did others measure perceived brand image? How do others measure, let's say, consumer acceptance of let's say, a reporting format. So everything that you're writing out, you have to check whether there have been a measurement for the key variable in that statement. And if you find the measurement, you try to see to what extent has your data captured that type of measurement so that you don't deviate. Okay. The internal validity means that when you look at the write-up that you have you established a logical chain of evidence where that there's a causal relationship? Certain things, conditions are established and presented before other things are claimed. So you are saying the person can write text messages, can send texts, can be able to make phone calls, use a calendar. Have you established that the person can read or write? Okay. So in that scenario, you are going to use pattern matching to make sure that you establish that the pattern, the outcome of the patterns makes sense and it can be derived from the pattern that exists. And you also use explanation building. We saw it here. Sometimes when Rakia is writing, she'll stop and then she'll emphasize and explain herself. Like in the individualism, for example, when she made a point, she went on to explain what individualism is. The idea was to try to enhance understanding that exists there. Okay. And then you also see that address rival explanation, whether there could be any other explanation that is actually accounting to what you have seen. Okay. And then use logic models. Can you see that we actually also presented some diagrams earlier, some systematic diagrams to be able to show how we simplify the data or condense the data into a diagram or a schematic part of how cars are sold. I will show you different ones. Can we use logic models to be able to point it out? Logic models is not just about diagram, it can also be about use if-then test to be able to point out something. Okay. There's a hand up, so let me answer that question. Julius, your hand is red. First, okay, Julius, ask. Julius.
Is not there. Sorry, no, I'm here. Prof, please, about the reliability, that would only hold if you are replicating with the same demographic. Is that correct? Because if you develop the case study protocol and then you replicate, but you do it in a different demographic, then you can expect that there may be differences in findings.
Yes. That is why you say that develop a case study protocol. So if the person follows it, can he get the same results? At least. Okay, Kwesi, your question.
Prof, please, I wanted to find out the thematic analysis we do now is when you get the data and you finally run an analysis of the data to get a finding. So I want to ask that in the qualitative research that you conduct, can you use more than one of the thematic analysis technique in one research work in terms of the data analysis?
Technically, most of people, somebody says using thematic analysis, you follow a particular person's own. but you see coding in. Remember, thematic analysis is also a collection. Remember, you said that it's a cluster of approaches. So if you're using Bronson, make sure you're using Bronson throughout. However, you see somebody says you're using Mouse and Huberman's analysis techniques. You end up seeing that you do some thematic, you do data. In fact, the core things you do it with for data collection, data condensation, data display, and then verifying conclusions, concluding, generating and verifying conclusions. So those are the 4 things you do. In the doing of them, you will see codes being happen. Codes can be seen as themes. So means sometimes people use it interchangeably. You will see the person doing cross-case analysis. You see the person doing pattern matching and pattern and counting to see what is there. You see the person doing all those things, but they are all under the Mouse and Huberman. The Mouse and Huberman are about 4 key stages. The data collection part, where you have to do your notes and everything and establish your protocol, your database. Then you have to go to the next one where you are doing data condensation. That's when you are developing codes. And after you have done the developing codes and stuff, you have to then do the memoing so you can generate a write-up. In the midst of trying to do the memoing and stuff, your display becomes important because you have to display the data and reduce the data. In fact, when you're even developing the case, you can also use the data display to reduce the data. For example, you want to show that, explain the process in which cars are moved from the harbor to the presidency. You can use a diagram to explain it. It has to go to the chief. The chief of staff has to give you a letter. The letter is about to send to Ghana Post and Harbor. Canada has to send to the party headquarters. The party headquarters have to confirm that they are not giving you one before, and all those things. Then you get your car. I'm not saying that they give cars there. I'm just using it as a scenario, please. I hope you understand what Anyway, I hope you understand me. Those of you who support different parties, I'm just saying my thing.
Yes, please.
Me, I'm for Ghana, so whichever one will work with them. Okay, so yeah, so were you saying something? Oh, yeah, okay. So this is how your case study protocol propose strategy for carrying out the data collection. Overview of the project, target population, sampling procedure, case study questionnaire, data collection methods to be used, data skills required, a guide for case study reports. Then case study database, all the things that you captured from the field. The case study database is one of it that enhances the reliability of your work. Case study protocol too enhances the internal validity of your work. Okay. Okay, so what I just did for you is what I was just going to tell you to do. Read pages 67 to 61 of Rakia's work, and I find out the techniques in which of them we use. We're doing that right now. Okay. The next part is what we call argumentation. Argumentation means that you're actually going to argue based on the literature that you have. Now, the literature that you have is the arguments are the set of ideas that you express. And you see, the argumentation goes with the way you write your work. So I need to be able to point that one out so that you can inform what you are doing. Okay, good. Now, arguments there are different types of arguments. So let me start with the different types of arguments. Now, sometimes somebody will argue to show how something works. So when you're doing that, we call that one a mechanical argument. And usually you see mechanical arguments in the beginning part of a case study. When a person is explaining the company or presenting, introducing the entity who the case is being written about. So for example, in case A, Auntie Akosha is a tomato retail trader. She has junior high school level education, has been working as a tomato retailer since June 2008. A works with Jane, who serves as an intermediary between her and the farmers in the villages. All of this is telling you how the thing operates, what constitutes it. Maize is a seasonal produce that requires cost-saving techniques in trading activities. The old maize is preferred to the fresh one for the reason planting and harvesting are well planned by farmers. Maize wholesalers buy produce from farmers in the village and sell to retailers in Accra. Grace is a maize wholesaler who has 4 retailers. All of this mechanical arguments, telling you how something is constituted and how something operates. The next one is developmental argument, how something came to where it became. different from the other one. So this one, we use it for explaining the phenomenon, background to the phenomenon. People do that a lot. Prior to you are studying mobile phones and micro trading. So Auntie Akwesia's own. Prior to owning the mobile phone, what was Auntie Akwesia doing? Our communication between AA and Jane was constrained by distance. The limited access to Jane often contributed to poor inventory management. In such scenarios, AA had to buy from other wholesalers, and that increased the coordination cost. She was then advised by a friend. All of them is telling you developmental, so it's very detailed, contextual, and multi-layered interpretation of a process that has occurred. Are we good?
Yes, Prof.
Okay. Then we can go to the next one called comparative arguments. So you compare case A against case B, or a scenario, you're in case A, so you're in case B, so you can then compare in order to draw some explanatory significance from a specified set of comparisons, and therefore the logical explanation is tied up with the mechanism of comparison. The mobile phone made it easy for Grace to carry out her transaction more efficiently. She does not have to travel frequently to do her business unless she has to go around for collect payments. She does this once a month. I don't need to come to Accra to supply the maize. All I do is to take orders on the phone and hire a truck to send commodity. I don't have to put my life at risk by making unnecessary journeys. So she's comparing now that she has a phone and when she didn't have a phone. So it's a comparative argument. And by that, she has able to explain the benefit of the phone. Have you seen that? Okay, nobody is seeing.
Yes, please.
Okay, causal argument. Causal arguments tell us there are two types. So there's causation and prediction. Causation is focused on the detail, complexity, and contextuality, and not expecting to find a cause or an effect in a straightforward fashion. It tells us in terms of what it's usually framed in terms of the effects of variables on each other. However, that is not the focus of the qualitative research. Causality focuses on detail, complexity, and contextuality, not expecting to find a cause and effect in a straightforward fashion. So it's not going to be about causality like how mathematical will try to do causal issues to causal variables to something. What it's trying to just here is tell you the effect of the thing on the other. And the other one is about prediction, why and how social phenomena processes happen in a particular circumstance. So look at this, a number of iterated issues relating to financial constraints at the firm and the national level, the limitations of relying on social networks, and the importance of trust and limited managerial knowledge of e-commerce procedures contribute to the failure of the project. John resolved that if he had to develop a new website, then it had to be done in a manner that it could have adequate control. Now, this was an extract coming from the fact that John was relying on his friends' social networks to be able to manage his website. So he sent money to his friend in the UK to renew his website domain for him. And the friend didn't renew it and spend the money. And the friend didn't tell him. He always told him, you had done. When the time was up, he lost his website. And John learned that it occurred because of, now look at the causes. So the causes are being listed there. It occurred because of one, constraints at the firm and national level. So the firm didn't have a credit card. And then at the national level too, you don't have at that time in 2002, they didn't have some kind of means of using debit card to pay for online payments, because even the Electronic Transaction Act has not been passed. The limitation of relying on social networks, you want to depend on friends and the friends disappointed him. The importance of trust was breached, and limited Nigerian knowledge. He didn't know how to design, he didn't know the e-commerce processes himself, how to go to the web, to go to online and check whether his domain has been renewed. He didn't know all these things. Because he didn't know all these things, he failed, his website was collapsed. And then John resolved, because of that, prediction. So causality, then prediction. Because of that, John resolved to develop a new website. Remember, make if then what was the name? Make if then test. So this is what he said. This is coming from the cases, so I'm just extracting this from the case. If I had to develop a new website, then it had to be done in a manner in which I can have adequate control, knowledge, and flexibility to manage the content and the web hosting service. And that's what he actually did. So it means that we have mechanical, developmental, comparative, and causative and predictive forms of argument. So when we look at the argument, we'll see it. But how do we arrive at this place? So in presses, when you are actually writing, you can argue, you can show your argumentation by doing evidentially, trying to provide evidence for an issue. I can make this argument because I can show the relevant evidence, weighing the evidence. If this is your argument, then you'll be concerned to demonstrate that you have marshaled and assembled the evidence carefully and appropriately. So you may end up using mechanical arguments to come and support by giving the background of the institution, and then developmental arguments to show you where their company has come from concerning the phenomenon. So your argument is to demonstrate the evidence. Demonstrate the evidence. Okay. Look at this, arguing evidentially. In case A used the mobile phone functionality to schedule times to supply customers with tomatoes. In case B, customers are able to monitor the delivery times. This communication medium creates a borderless environment or redefines the place in transacting business with customers and creating more personalized services. Personalized services lead to deeper relations, which can contribute to loyalty and retention. This is all said because of what? Case A and case B. So he has provided the evidence that can lead to this argument. That's what I was trying to point out. Or present an argument that is supported by certain evidence. Arguing narratively or interpretively. If this is your argument, you'll be concerned how to show that interpretation is sensitive and appropriately nuanced and valid. So you want to show that this is how the things occurred. Okay, argue interpretively and narratively. Economic empowerment is evident in both cases presented above. For example, Ray stated that I'm able to send simple text messages to inform customers on maize prices and delivery times. They also emphasized that I do not need to be at the market every day, yet still make money. So you are picking the narratives of the people, and we are going to use that one to make an inference. In this respect, the findings suggest that the women traders have gained economic empowerment. Where is it coming from? The narrative is telling us that. The narrative here is, and you can interpret from the narrative that economic empowerment is taking place. Then you can also argue illustratively or evocatively. The researcher's aim is to get the researcher to feel and understand what he's going through, experientially or by illustration, whatever information is to be conveyed. Okay, so here, for example, there's an argument in my PhD. I was talking about affordability of internet in Ghana, and I had to argue illustratively. I said, second, the target market needs tends to be limited because of affordability and accessibility. Somebody says so. The limiting factor to household internet access is the investment involved. To set up the household internet access explanation building, it costs a total of minimum of $260 for a second-hand computer with a modem and one month household access. This is coming from Africa Online at that time. At public access points, it costs an average of 1 CD 30 pesos to browse for an hour. Now, Ghanaians have a daily minimum wage of $2 as of 2007. I think this one says in 2007. This means that the internet access is relatively expensive for a majority of Ghanaians and for business. Why? Because it means that if you price for 1 hour, your daily wage, almost more than half of it is gone. Okay. So arguing illustratively. And then you can also argue lastly multivocally, where you are using different or range of interpretations of voices to make an argument. So look at this one. Concerning the level of education and usage behavior, all respondents who had no formal education actively use the mobile phones in all the stages of trading. All respondents. Noting that the number of respondents with no formal education is only 13%. It is inconclusive to suggest a significant number of education, the significant impact of education on the mobile phone usage. Okay. However, the innovative use of calculators and trading was observed. 12 out of the 18 traders, 9% in total, with no formal education, claim to use calculators in the trading activities. This ability to identify the basic functions in mobile phones and integrate them in trading activities is arguably a function of some level of education. The perceived ease of using the mobile phone is they owned, and the perceived ease of using a mobile phone they own. On further inquiry, now look at here, the traders intimated that they often receive help from their children, friends, relatives, and sometimes customers in learning some of their functions, especially with simple tests with the calculators and use of calendars as reminders. So the other viewpoints of the other traders is what help us to understand. It's not just Anti-Akosia and Grace. The other viewpoints of the other traders. So other traders intimated. So you are using other voices to be able to intimate it. Rakia did something like that, arguing multivocally. If you remember, when she was presenting her work, remember that she talked about something called Mrs. Okafor. When I was reading the work, sorry. Another illustrative example is Mrs. Okafor, a rice retailer who owns 3 stores in the market. She says that okay, so this is another multivocally trying to bring another voice in the issue. Okay, so that brings us to the end of looking into all the issues that has to do with this particular work. Now I'll pause here. I'll arrange. I think we should hopefully if we can meet on Monday when I have finished lectures for just an hour to talk about exams or 30 minutes. Just talk about exams and the questions that will come and stuff. Is that okay?
Yes, please.
Obed,
Yes, Prof.
If we can meet around 9:30.
Yes, please.
9:30 to 10:30 on Monday or 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock on Monday. We will do. We'll confirm.
Yes, Prof. Thank you.
Just for 1 hour to just talk about exams. Okay, because I finished teaching what I want. I want to teach this on Monday, but I've taught it now. We're quite out of your patience. So right now you have it, but all of them are plenty to you. So when we are giving you the videos on Monday, I can also show you which of the videos you should watch and look out for the exams. Is that okay?
Yes, please.
Yes, Prof.
Yes, sir. Prof, yeah, very, very grateful, Prof.
Okay. So Obed, in effect, all of you, I just want you to, okay, maybe Monday I'll highlight it before I start. I'll show you a slide that explains when you can use all the different, how to make choices between the different analytics techniques and why you should use them, why this one will matter or something like that. It's a summary slide that I have so that I can use it to lead you to the exams because you have learned about a lot of them now. And we have done some practical ones too. Okay. So Obed, is there any announcement?
Hello, Prof.
Is there any announcement?
Hello, Prof.
Yes, I'm here.
No, Prof, you mentioned the other day about presentations and a quiz. I don't know if
Yeah. It's true. Monday we'll talk about it.
It's a Robert.
okay,
You're supposed to write a proposal. Do you realize?
Yes, Prof.
Yes, please.
So we will schedule you guys.
Please.
We will schedule you guys with time as we go on. That Monday we'll decide whether we do it after exams or before exams. But we'll do presentations on your proposal and I'll give you feedback so that you guys can have proper feedback towards your second. Because when you get to second year, you actually have to send a proposal. So you present your proposal and I'll give you feedback to me on your work. And it count towards your exam.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. It will count towards your scoring. That's what I mean, your scoring.
Yes, Prof.
Okay, then. Thank you very much.
You too.
Okay, all the best.
Thank you too, Prof.
Thank you, Prof.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Prof. Bye.